Yeah.
They won't take half an hour. This part will, but the next meeting that will take a
Spend a lot of money on these things.
I know, right?
Meeting at 6:30, we'll get this started. So welcome to tonight's Villago Community Facilities District Board meeting. I'll call the meeting to order. The roll call show that all board members are present.
So noted.
I'll need an approval for the minutes of July 6th,
So approved.
unless there are any
Second.
changes. Okay, moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, minutes are approved. We'll go right into new business, item D1. Resolution number 62. Mr. Raines?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, we're here this evening to ask the board to consider a resolution authorizing the issuance of general obligation bonds as well as general obligation refunding bonds, Series 2020, levying an ad valorem tax on taxable property within the Villago Community Facilities District and providing all the documents and terms and conditions for the sale and administration of these bonds. And I thought, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, that what I would do is provide the board with a bit of a history. It's been a while since the board has considered any type of financing for the Villago CFD. But as you can see in the request for action as well as the various documents, Villago, the subdivision of Villago and the CFD was formed in early 2000s, and actually at that point in time established $50 million worth of bonding authority within that district at a target tax rate of $2 per hundred to service the debt, as well as 30 cents to pay for any operations and maintenance within the district. And I know that the board is familiar with the fact that we have unusual to the approach that we typically have taken. In 2006, we actually issued a small issuance to essentially establish the $2 tax rate in this particular community. But ultimately, that was all based on a feasibility report that was approved in 2010 that outlined roughly $5,207,959 in infrastructure costs that had been actually paid for by the developer at that point. They essentially did the design, the engineering, and covered the costs associated with running the primary sewer line into the community itself, along with other types of sewer infrastructure at that amount. And so what we have found is we've issued the various bonds over the years. We've issued 3 bonds in an effort to pay back the developer for that initial investment of $5.2 million. We have roughly reimbursed the developer over those 3 issuances, roughly $3,074,000. So what we find ourselves at today is an outstanding balance of our reimbursable balance of $2.133595,959 that's available in reimbursable infrastructural costs out of that initial feasibility report that was approved by the district in 2010. Tonight, what we're asking the board to consider is a actual GEO bond in that amount, as well as refunding of the 3 prior bond issuances that we've issued in the past. And we find that in today's, what I consider to be fantastic interest environment, that through the refunding of that of the 3 prior bond issuances, that we could save approximately $600,000 in a net present value. And so the unique thing about this is that within that district, we have seen what I consider to be a fair amount of assessed valuation increases over the years, and we're able to achieve all of this within the $2 target tax rate that was established per the financing agreement. I will say for the board's benefit, we have typically levied $2 per 100 assessed valuation within this district. That number did drop the last 3 years, roughly between $1.86 and $1.89. Again, all of that was driven on the fact that we were seeing an increased assessed valuation within that district. And so this particular bond issuance, as well as the refunding, would ultimately allow us, and we've programmed it, maintaining a $2 tax rate with no assessed value increase, which gives the district a little bit of what I would consider to be flexibility there, given the fact that Community Southwest is anticipating to see additional growth in the existing phase, as well as the council knows, or as the board knows, they're ultimately planning their upcoming phases as well. And so we as a staff believe that this is a good structure for the particular district, and believe that we can achieve, one, the final reimbursement to the developer with this particular approval of this particular resolution, as well as see a net present value savings from the other bonds to the residents that live in the Belago community. And so with that, Mr. Chairman and/or board, I would entertain any questions. I would like to say that we've got our finance, bond counsel, and members from the Community Southwest team here. If there's any specific questions regarding the deal, they are the individuals that have worked very diligently to put together the analysis, as well as the preliminary offering statement as part of this deal. We would look to conduct the pricing on these bonds is before the end of the month, and then ultimately look to issue the bonds. Nick, when are we anticipating that?
October 15th.
Thank you, and on October the 15th.
So soon.
So soon, that's
Okay.
right. With that, I'd entertain any questions.
Mary?
Just out of curiosity, I know I see that we're having the savings, but what is the cost of issuing the bonds?
Nick, can you help me out, please? Thank you.
Mr. Chairperson, members of the board, my name is Nick Dodd with Piper Sandler, we're the bond underwriter. The cost of issuance are estimated to be approximately $250,000 for both the new money reimbursement to the developer as well as the refinancing. And those are spread evenly amongst the two, so it's approximately $125,000 that would be allocated to the refinancing.
Okay, all right, and so that would be kind of.
I think his mic is off.
So we have the,
It's on, right up front, Nick.
Nope. There you go.
yeah, there we
Thank
go.
you.
So, yeah, so I was able to hear you on that. So when we have the 600,000 in savings, and that's offset a little bit by the 125?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, the 600,000 is actually a net present value savings. So
Oh, okay.
the proceeds from the bond cover all of the costs, so there's no money out of pocket to the
Okay.
district. And then the 600 is actually a net of the cost. So if there were no costs associated with doing a transaction, your savings would probably be about 725,000.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, seeing Mr. Powell. Almost cut you off.
How does the different development products affect the money that's generated? I know in Villago, you've got some brown homes, some really nice homes, and some that seem to be a little more compact and not up to the others. Is what they generate, how does that affect, if it does at all, the,
Mr. Chairman, Member Powell, if I can take the first stab at responding to the question. Ultimately, what you will find is that any new property that comes on to the tax rolls is going to have a positive benefit towards the assessed valuation, full cash value on these within the district. And so typically, and I'll let Mr. Dodd perhaps even expand further on this if he'd like, any new structure that comes onto the roll will potentially have some impact on lowering the tax rate. Is that fair, Nick?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, and Mr. Raines, yes, it is. And what I'd say is, and if you look at the historical property increase values of this district, they were kind of stagnant for a number of years and then started to gradually see some increases. And then really a year ago is when we saw the first big jump. And we've analyzed assessors and what they do and how they put property on the tax rolls every which way to Sunday, so I can get as in-depth as you like. But what our experience has been is a house that sells goes on the tax rolls at about 80% of value. So whether it's a $100,000 home or a $300,000 home, it goes on the rolls at about 80% because that's going to keep people from filing protests, and the assessors don't want to deal with a bunch of individual protests. And then it takes about 12 to 18 months for that home or improved property to hit the assessed value, and that's just a timing mechanism with how Arizona property taxation works. So if you kind of back up from that, some of the activity you saw in Villago starting really 12 to 18 months ago is now finally hitting the tax rolls, and that plus the low interest rate environment is what's really allowed this particular transaction to come forward. As the city manager mentioned, with no increase in assessed values, you should be able to maintain your $2 tax rate. Our expectation is that you would actually see probably some pretty decent growth in assessed values over the next couple of years as some of this other product comes online.
and that growth is the benefit to doing that?
From an investor's perspective, obviously a project that's growing and seeing increases in tax values is a positive, yes.
Any other questions? Comments? Okay, so thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, if I can, before Nick steps down, perhaps, Nick, you can go into a little bit of depth about the ratings and those types of things with this. I think it's important for our community to know how positive of an effort we've seen with the Villago CFD.
Be happy to. So, Mr. Chair, members of the board, so as we went through this process, one of the strategies we had identified and set out was to try and achieve the ability to get bond insurance. And so in the municipal bond world, the city is pretty highly rated. You're AA rated based on your creditworthiness and your fund balances. A smaller district like Villago really just has one source of repayment, that's secondary property taxes. And so in the early phases of development, those are typically non-rated, so they're viewed as speculative investments. So if you were an investor, you would require a higher rate of return to make that investment in the board. Well, as the development has matured and shown an ability to pay off its debts over the last really 14 years, we were able to approach one of the bond insurance companies. It's a company called Build America Mutual, or BAM, and they're rated AA, and we were able to get this particular transaction qualified for bond insurance. So the security for the bonds is the unlimited property tax of the ratepayers in the district. But in addition, we wrap that with a bond insurance policy. That's part of the cost of issuance that we mentioned. So that's paid for out of the bond proceeds. And that extra security allows us to lower our interest costs. So on this particular transaction, just to give you some perspective, the 3 old bond issues averaged a 6% rate of return to the investors. One of them actually had an 8% rate of return. Larry and I were joking about in '08 when that deal was done, we were happy because we were in the middle of the financial crisis, and you look back now and think, oh my gosh, that's expensive money, right? And so today, the average rate on the bonds we're expecting is around 2.4%. So your outstanding debt was out at 6%. We're hopeful we're going to come in under a 2.5%, and that's a combination of the interest rate environment plus the ability to secure this bond insurance policy, which rates the bonds AA and also adds a layer of security to the investors in the event of a non-payment. So we were really happy about that. It's the first time one of the city's CFDs has qualified for bond insurance. In the past, they were either non-rated or low investment grade. So we felt like that was a good step.
Great, well, thank you.
Would the insurance deal with the city itself or with investors or both?
So the way the insurance works is in the event, let's just say there was a meltdown and property tax payments didn't come in, the bond insurance company would actually step in, make the payment to the investors, and then they would come to district staff and work with you guys to figure out how are we going to remedy this situation.
Yeah,
Now-
it's us because we're the district.
Correct. It's
Right.
district, and the reality in this situation is you would have to go above your targeted $2 tax rate. That's aspirational, but it's only that if it works. And so that's the kind of the interplay. So they would make the investors whole, and that's what allows you to achieve the lower interest rate, and then turn around and work with the district to remedy
The problem.
the default.
Yeah,
Thank you.
great. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, I'll entertain a resolution, please.
Resolution number 62, a resolution of the Board of Directors of the Lago Community Facilities District, City of Casa Grande, Arizona, authorizing the issuance of its general obligation and general obligation refunding bonds, Series 2020, levying an ad valorem tax on taxable property in the district, providing certain terms, conveyance, and conditions concerning the sale of the bonds by authorizing the execution and delivery of a bond purchase agreement, providing for the disposition of the proceeds of such bonds, authorizing the appointment of a registrar and paying agent for the bonds in one or more series, approving the form of certain documents and authorizing completion, execution, and delivery thereof, delegating the authority to approve and deem final a form of official statement, adopting written continuing disclosure compliance procedures, and issuance and post-issuance tax compliance procedures in connection with the issuance of bonds of the district, and ratifying all actions to be taken with respect to the bonds in furtherance of this resolution.
Chairman McFarland, I move for the adoption of resolution number 62 as presented.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Can I please get a roll call vote?
Member Huddleston.
Yes.
Member McBride.
Yes.
Member Cortson.
Yes.
Member Herman.
Yes.
Member Powell.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Chairman McFarland.
Yes. All right. Larry, is there any other business for the board? All right, seeing none, then the Facilities District for Villago is adjourned. And we'll start the city council meeting at 7 o'clock. And I want to ask anybody who comes in, you must have a mask on when you come in, please. And then once you get seated, you can take it off. But we ask that everybody who comes in and is standing, please keep your mask on. Thank you. All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's city council meeting. This is the meeting of Monday, September 21st. We'll call the meeting to order. First order of business is our invocation and our pledge of allegiance. So if you would all join us. Mr. Huddleston, would you mind?
I'd be glad to.
Thank you.
Dear Lord, we come to you tonight and ask for your presence and blessing for our council meeting tonight. We ask for your strength and wisdom as we undertake the business of the city. Help us to make decisions that are beneficial to our entire population. We thank you, Lord, tonight for watching over us during the COVID pandemic. We thank you for watching over our first responders here in Casa Grande. As we saw this weekend, the line that they walk every day that comes so close to danger and disaster for them. We also ask that you watch over all of our service people, both at home and abroad. And Lord, also please watch over our nation as we mourn the passing of Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. We ask all these things, Lord, in your Son's name, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Lisa. Let the roll call show that all council members are present.
So noted.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the city.
So moved.
Mayor McFarland, I move that we approve the city council regular meeting minutes from September 8th and accept for the record the fire personnel retirement board minutes from August 20th, the planning and zoning commission minutes from July 2nd, planning and zoning commission minutes from August 6th, police personnel retirement board minutes from September 3rd, and the fire personnel retirement board minutes from September 10th as presented.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved. Claims against the city, item D1.
Mayor McFarland, I move to accept and pay the claims dated September 2nd, September 15th, 2020 as presented.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the claims of September 2nd, it's easy for me to say, through September 15th. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, claims are approved. Meeting agenda. I do have a change on the meeting agenda. I'm going to move the minutes, or the, not the minutes, but the reports in item N on the agenda to right after, or right before the executive session, so the N reports will be there. Any other changes, Larry or council members?
Mr. Mayor, from staff's perspective, I do want to let the mayor and council know that one of the executive session items related to the Evergreen irrigation system is on executive session and can run concurrently with the item as it's being considered if the mayor and council would like to adjourn for legal counsel. The other thing I'd like to let everyone know is that, as I mentioned earlier, we are having some technical difficulties, and so we are streaming this on Facebook and YouTube versus on our website and TV 11. Those will be uploaded tomorrow morning after the full recording of the meeting.
Larry, the executive session, and will we cover both subjects then, or can we go back into executive session after, at the end, in the normal time for the other item?
Right.
Okay.
If you wish to go into executive session regarding the Evergreen irrigation system, it's on there so you can do it
Okay.
prior to that item, and then the other item would be considered in its normal course.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right. Based on the change for the agenda tonight, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Mayor McFarland, I move approval as amended.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. The agenda is set. No special presentations, so next item is item G, our consent agenda. All items listed with an asterisk are considered routine matters and will be enacted by one motion and one roll call vote of the council. There'll be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or member of the public so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. Is there anyone who wants to pull anything off? Anyone from the public? Council? Okay, seeing none. Then-
Mayor, I would move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Gloria, can I get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Huddleston.
Yes.
Councilmember McBride.
Yes.
Councilmember Herman.
Yes.
Councilmember Cortson.
Yes.
Councilmember Powell.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Fitzgibbon.
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. All right, next item is actually public comments, but we're going to hold those public comments to the items, we scratched it off the,
Right.
yeah. So because of our COVID situation, we've eliminated public comments, but we will allow for public comment at the right time, okay? So I don't want anybody to think I'm just passing over you. We'll move along here, and next item is item I1, consider ordinance number 3231.
Evening.
Good evening.
Thank you. Staff recommends that the mayor and city council authorize the purchase agreement with Rush Truck Center of Phoenix in an amount not to exceed $1,099,360 for the purchase of 4 2021 Peterbilt 250 cab-over engine chassis with Spartan 300 automated side load bodies for use in the city's sanitation operations. These 4 vehicles are all over 10 years old. We had originally estimated or planned on using them for 7 years. And of course, with a lot of our budget cuts and trying to stretch our dollar out, we extended the useful life of these out to year 10. We're also paying the price for that right now with some of our breakdowns, as you probably
We've heard.
will recall from last week. We had one service route that we were unable to complete because of that. That's the dice we roll, but it's the choices we made. The purchase of these vehicles, staff is requesting authorization to use state contract number CTR 041812. And of course, buying off of the state contract does benefit us financially. In this instance, it's 23% off of manufacturer's suggested retail price for these vehicles. So great opportunity. Of course, Rush Truck Auto Center is providing us the chassis, and then our local contractor, Spartan Trucks, is going to be building the new Spartan side load vehicles. We currently use Scorpions, and it's actually the design crew came over and are now designing their own side load bodies. So we'll be purchasing these, and Spartan will be putting those on the chassis. You may recall 2 years ago, we got some roll-off trucks. Again, Rush Truck Center provided the chassis, and Spartan was the one that put the roll-off bodies on those trucks. So we've had real good luck with them so far, and look forward to working with them here in the future. Again, we have, let's see, we have $1,108,000 is our budget authority, and this total purchase is $1,099,360. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Matt?
Kevin, you'll be surprised, but I don't have very many questions because I have seen how many times you've had to have the trucks towed. I've seen what's happened. I'm glad we got 10 years out of them, but like you said, we're getting to that point. I'm really glad we're buying them in the parts that we can locally. And also, one of the most fiscally conservative guys I know sometimes does work on the trucks for us. And I was talking to him about something else, and he goes, "You guys need to get some new garbage trucks because those." So I'm confident in these ones, Kevin. So thank you.
And we are getting $23,000 and a little change for trade-in, which is much more than we typically get when we take these vehicles to auction. So, great deal. Excuse me? It ranged anywhere from $2,000 to $15,000 on the high end, And I mean, it was a crapshoot. You just don't know who's going to be there purchasing for what reasons. And
And this way, we're just done with them.
Yeah.
this is a great opportunity for us.
Lisa?
So Kevin, what's the time frame on getting these because of the current situation, how it's affected the service levels? How long is it going to take, and do you see any problems in the near future like what happened this last week?
Well, I don't want to think about having those types of issues again. I mean, I can't tell you how unique some of these breakdowns are and how impactful they are. We are having challenges getting parts to service these vehicles. We actually have one truck that we've taken offline, and we are starting to basically pull it apart and use the pieces from that to keep these trucks running. It's going to have an impact on the deliverability of these new vehicles. There will be some delays. Again, we couldn't get any 2020 vehicles. We're actually ordering 2021. We missed that window. So they'll be here as quick as they can, and, you know, I don't think the chassis are going to be an issue, and it's just getting them built and getting them on the street. But we'll be working with the manufacturer on both those items, making sure that they're moving forward.
Are they estimating? I mean, is it 6 months? Is it a year?
I
Any
don't
estimate?
recall the estimated delivery
Okay.
date. I did not print that
Okay.
information out.
Okay.
Matt?
And also, I saw, I happened to run home one day and I saw a truck picking up garbage and it didn't say City of Casa Grande on it. And I was like, that's weird, what's going on with their trucks? And I talked to Kevin, and they were actually trying out the Spartan body. And actually, on my neighborhood, they were switching out drivers, so I know you were probably having everyone check it out. So they've been doing their due diligence as well, so I saw it in action.
So they used an old Arizona City
Yeah.
sanitation
Yeah.
truck and left the logo on the side. So we got quite a few calls that day, not just from you.
I was like, man, do we have to hire
Including from me.
outsource it?
I said, what's Arizona City doing here?
Yeah, I'm not paying two bills on that.
Yeah, really.
Mr. Powell, did you have a comment you wanted to make?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, how many, with the 4 new units, how many of those vehicles would you have then?
Well, we like to have 9 operational at any one time. 6 is our minimum to do our side load routes, but we also have our rear loads out, our front loads. So we have a combination of vehicles that we can use, but 9 is optimal, 6 is where we start to really feel the pain.
So you're
I
pretty
think we
confident with
have,
what?
I believe we have 11 side loads total in our fleet.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, then I'll consider an ordinance number, please, Gloria.
Ordinance number 3231, an ordinance of the council of the city of Casa Grande, Arizona, accepting a bid from Rush Truck Centers of Arizona, Inc. for the purchase of 4 2021 Peterbilt 520 cab-over engine chassis with Spartan 300 automated side load bodies, authorizing expenditure of public funds, authorizing execution of a contract with or purchase order to Rush Truck Centers of Arizona, Inc. in accordance with the terms and conditions submitted to the Arizona State bid list, and authorizing the transfer of budget authority.
Mayor McFarland, I move approval of ordinance number 3231 as presented.
Second?
Kevin, I just want to thank you for your presentation too, by the way.
Yep.
All right, so I have a motion and a second. Can I get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Huddleston.
Yes.
Councilmember McBride.
Yes.
Councilmember Herman.
Yes.
Councilmember Cortson.
Yes.
Councilmember Powell.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. All right, next item is item J on our agenda. It's boards and commissions. This is approving a reappointment of Danielle Delsey to the Board of Appeals with a term to expire on August 4th. First of all, I just want to publicly thank Danielle for her past term on the Board of Appeals. This is her second term. And I know Donna and I had a nice conversation with her here a couple of weeks ago. But just to say thank you for her service, and really thank you to all of our board members and commissioners for their service, because it's not exactly a paid job.
No.
So, that being said, I'll entertain a motion to approve Danielle's reappointment.
So move.
Second?
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Thank you, Ms. Delsey. Item K is the next item on our agenda, K1. Consider an ordinance number 3230, creating the Judicial Selection Committee and describing its duties and declaring an emergency to get it set up.
Mayor McFarland, council members, items K1 and K2 are related, so I'll be making just one presentation for both actions. And these follow up the actions council took at the last council meeting relating to the process that the council uses, both from a mandated perspective under the city charter and by council policy every 2 years to appoint or reappoint our city judge. So the first item is an ordinance that actually creates the Judicial Selection Committee. This ordinance mirrors the ordinance council adopted 2 years ago, and this is an opportunity for council to provide additional guidance and direction to the Judicial Selection Committee in relationship to the process. And this again mirrors what was passed 2 years ago. And so the proposed ordinance before you tonight adds 2 conditions or creates 2 guidelines for the Judicial Selection Committee. The charter requires that the committee forward a minimum of 2 names for your consideration. This ordinance takes that into consideration and directs the committee to not forward more than 5 names to you. So no less than 2, no more than 5, and directs that the committee forward those names to you in alphabetical order. So that's the ordinance that, and we ask for an emergency clause so that we can begin to do the committee's duties very quickly. Now, we've got more lead time this year than certainly 2 years ago, as I've read about. And so our recruitment process for city judge concludes at the end of the day tomorrow, at 5 o'clock tomorrow, and then we'll be taking those and getting those to the committee. We anticipate probably 2 meetings of the Judicial Selection Committee, one for organization purposes and to review the resumes that are received, and the second would be to interview those. But that'll be up to the committee as they talk about how they want to move forward. The second item for your consideration this evening is the actual appointment of the Judicial Selection Committee. The charter prescribes that it be made up of 5 citizens of our community. And in keeping with past practices, the mayor directed the city manager to solicit suggested names from the council of those citizens who they may wish to be considered to serve on the committee. And what you have before you this evening is a culmination of that process. And these names were announced at our last council meeting. So your second action item would be the mayor basically puts those names in a nomination, and then the council then votes on those nominations according to how the charter works. So those are the 2 items up for your consideration this evening. The first is an ordinance creating the committee, and the second is appointing the committee. And then the next thing that will be on your agenda will be when the committee just sends its recommendation to you for action. I'll be glad to answer any questions you have.
Donna?
Just a clarification, Scott, on that. Can you verify on the qualifications of each applicant that we get? Are those going to be verified by your department before they go to the committee, or all of them as a blanket are just going to go to them?
Absent any further direction, I believe that it's been the practice over the course of many years, many times, to forward all of the resumes received to the committee. And so that would be my intent, is to get every resume that's been received to the committee for consideration.
Thank you.
We're still looking, hopefully, at being able to conclude by December 7th.
One more time, sir?
By December 7th to vote for that's our target date, Mr. Powell.
Yeah, I know that. That's what I was just.
Yep. We may want to try and do it a meeting before if we can, but we'll see. It's, because we may, well, I don't know, we haven't finalized, but we may do the induction of the new board sooner. We can do it the day after the election, technically.
The city attorney would need to speak to that issue, but the appointment of the city judge, or that consideration, that process has to take place after the new council is sworn in.
That's what I
Right.
was going to say, yeah. You'll have
Right,
to wait.
but you can swear in the new council the day after the November election has been validated, basically. You don't have to wait till December.
As was discussed at our last meeting, the timeline gave some suggested perhaps alternatives. the meeting of December 7th, which is the council meeting where council's sworn in, or an off Wednesday, or off Monday night or the next Monday night, or some other day. And I think I suggested you may want to, we'll poll you, talk about that perhaps in November.
Yeah, we have options, so. Okay, any other questions for Scott? Okay, seeing none, then we'll take these one at a time, and I'll call for an ordinance number, please, on item K1.
Ordinance number 3230, an ordinance of the council of the city of Casa Grande, Arizona, creating a judicial selection committee, describing its duties and declaring an emergency.
Mayor McFarland, I would move for passage of ordinance number 3230 as presented and declaring an emergency.
Second?
All right, then can I get a roll, I've got a motion and a second. Can I get a roll call vote, please, Gloria?
Councilmember Huddleston.
Yes.
Councilmember McBride.
Yes.
Councilmember Herman.
Yes.
Councilmember Cortson.
Yes.
Councilmember Powell.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. All right, the next item on the agenda is the list of individuals for the selection committee that I'm putting forward to all of you on the council. They are in order of alphabet: Mike Cruz, Gilbert Figueroa, Hayden or Mike Henderson, Judy Jackson, who I've selected as the chair, and then Roger Vanderpool. Is there any discussion on the names? Just to give you an idea, I wanted to have a little continuity, so there's a couple people who were on it the last time, and the others are new. I wanted a balance of our community, a good cross-section, especially of individuals who know our community. So I think the list is a pretty solid list. There were a couple others that were suggested, but there's only 5 spots, so it was not an easy decision on.
Mayor, do we
picking
need to
them.
approve this?
Yes,
tonight?
I need a motion to approve and a
I
second.
have one. I move we approve this.
Okay.
I second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Thank you all. Next item on the agenda is our K2, which is K3, consider ordinance number 3232, requiring the cessation of irrigation services by the city.
Thank you.
Is your mother-in-law okay?
No, my mother-in-law actually passed away today,
She
so.
did. I'm sorry, Steve.
Yes,
Sorry about that.
I appreciate it. That's an example of how COVID can strike so quickly.
Wow.
So,
That's sad.
yes.
Please give Marv our best.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, I will. So, thank you, Mayor and Council, for having me up. Obviously, this topic focuses on the proposal for the Evergreen irrigation system. Staff recommends the Mayor and City Council grant the city manager authority to refund those customers who paid an assessment fee during 2014 repairs to the pump in the amount of $686.38. Further, due to the uncertainty of current water tables and existing conditions of the well, the city will cease to operate the Evergreen irrigation system effective immediately, and the city will make no further repairs or upgrades to the system. As you recall, we have brought this topic to you several times. It was brought for your consideration on August 5th of 2019, and at that time, the staff was instructed to reach out to several members of the Evergreen area, and the item was tabled. Over the fall and winter months of 2019 and 2020, we did meet with several members of what I might call a focus group or key stakeholders. Many of the actions that were decided in those groups was taken after that. One of those actions was to pull the submersible pump and test the pump and motor. We also, at that time, video cameraed the well and evaluated the findings. The results showed that the pump and motor were operable and not attributing to the problems. The pump could deliver 440 to 705 gallons a minute, assuming there was good water in the well itself. And I can read you a quote from that third party that did that service. In my opinion, due to all of the above, there is not enough water in the well to support the size of pump. The static water level dropping from 180 to 218 indicates that water tables are dropping in that area over time. When it was a 10-inch well years ago, I could see it pumping 500 to 600 gallons a minute, but that is not the case anymore. So really, we've had several well experts and pump experts over the years tell us very much the same thing, that there's just not enough volume of water in the well to pump and effectively flood irrigate. So we did put the pump back in the well and tested it and saw no improvement. So we met again and shared those findings, and at that time it was decided to clean the lines to see if there's any blockages. We did have a third-party contractor, also called Ancon Pump, Ancon, I don't know the exact name of them, but they came out and used a jet rotor system to clean the sewer lines, or to clean the irrigation lines, and that uses a combination of vacuum and high-pressure water simultaneously to remove any material backflush during the jetting operation. This methodology has been successful in restoring piping to its original flow capabilities, as well as eliminating any extra debris in the lines. We did, after that, our staff took a camera and put it in the delivery lines, and in your packet, you've seen some of those pictures. We do have evidence of some damage to the lines, because the lines are 60 years old, but the lines themselves are fairly clear with just minor debris in the lines. There was a couple of questions that kind of came up from the group that I just wanted to answer as we get going. So one of those questions was, what is the status of the submersible pump? And as previously stated, the submersible pump was tested and showed that there is no pump and motor problem. Secondly, sorry, I have a few pieces of paper here. Secondly, is the water table dropping? Staff has verified evidence that the water table is at least 38 feet lower in the Evergreen well than at some point in the past. In addition, ADWR helped locate 4 monitoring wells on the north side of Florence and the east side of Pinal. The water table is dropping in all 4 of those wells since 2004. The average drop of these wells is 88 feet, with the highest being 115 feet and the lowest being 65 feet. So obviously the water table is dropping, and our well is not deep enough to produce the volume of water. Another question is, was the delivery lines cleaned properly? The delivery lines have been cleaned by the City Public Works Department in February of 2019 and again in June of 2019. We also hired a private contractor who cleaned the lines in December of 2019. All 3 times the delivery lines were cleaned with similar equipment that blows pressurized water through the system. Was a camera used in the well during the pump test, and why did we not get a second opinion? A camera was used in the well in October of 2019. We put that camera down when we pulled out the pump and motor. The video from the well is very similar to the video done in 2014. Empire Pump Corporation pulled the pump and hired a third party, Longmire Well Service, to perform the camera work. The conclusions drawn from the video were confirmed by both Empire Pump and Longmire Well Service. They were similar conclusions that have been drawn by the other well and drilling consultants and staff that we have evaluated this well over the past several years. Ancon also, just to keep in mind, the company that cleaned the delivery lines, Ancon is a reputable company that has performed line cleaning and other work for the city of Casa Grande for the past few years. Park staff rented a camera system to check the delivery lines, and pictures show that the delivery lines are clean enough to deliver water to the customers. So it's the final opinion of staff that after these efforts, that the well is collapsed at a location that is nearing the current water table, which in turn creates the inability for the pump to access sufficient water to adequately produce the volume of water necessary. I don't know if you're aware of it, currently the pump is inoperable. The water table has dropped so low that it pumps air. So we have not delivered water to our customers for at least 2 months. And with that, the well is really ineffective at this point. So staff has developed another alternative to discontinuing the Evergreen well system. We could authorize the city manager resources necessary to completely rebuild the Evergreen irrigation system. Costs of this project are very difficult to estimate because of the complex nature. The location of the well is in a very tight setting, and it's not like just going out in the field and drilling a well. We have had estimates ranging from approximately $250,000 to $500,000 to drill a new well. In addition, if you wanted better delivery lines that would ensure adequate services, those estimates to change or install new delivery lines could range from $450,000 to $770,000. So it would be a significant repair if we built an entirely new system. And with that, I will stand for questions.
Bob?
How many users do we have right now?
Well, currently, we have 0 users because it's
Well,
not working,
I mean,
but
if-
before, yes, we had between 6 and 10 users that have used the well in the last year.
Okay, I thought I read somewhere where we were down to 6.
Yes. If we go back an entire year, I think we had 9 or 10 users in that year, but at the last estimate, or the last check, we had 6 current customers.
Thank you.
Yes?
Mary?
If we invest what you're saying, between the 250 to 500,000, are we guaranteed that there will be sufficient water for a sufficient period of time?
I don't know that well drillers will ever guarantee anything.
Okay.
If I look on their estimate,
There's no guarantee of water.
correct.
And is it because of the water table?
Well, just reading off of their proposal that they sent us, we cannot guarantee water quality or quantity. Minimum drilling fee is for 100 feet, and then there's some other work. But they will drill a hole for you, for sure.
Okay.
They don't guarantee the water or the well. And we were, the estimate or the proposal that we received, and just to make sure, it's an estimate, it's a rough estimate, because we haven't set all the specifications for the project. But the estimate was to take the well down to 500 feet from the current level of about 250. So, and that's because the water table is dropping.
Is there a reasonable belief that at 500 feet that there is water there?
I'm not a well expert, so I
Okay.
couldn't tell you,
But
but
we haven't had
I believe
someone-
it's a reasonable estimate that, yes, there is water at 500 feet, so.
The well shows there's water at about 220, isn't there, in there now?
In ours, there was water at 218 when we cambered it
218,
down,
so-
but there wasn't water sufficient to
Right.
pump. Our well goes down approximately 250 feet, and the water table is about 250, or 218.
Okay.
And they call that the static water level.
Right.
When it's not under pressure, and so as soon as you turn that pump on, it drops.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Matt?
If there was a new well, do you think the lines would be sufficient to deliver to at least the 22 people? Or is that another?
I think the current lines could deliver water, yes. They do deliver water to, or they did deliver water to some customers at a little higher rate than others. So I think the cameraing that we did indicates that the lines are fairly clean. Wouldn't say that they're perfect, though. You know, they're 60 years old. Some of the lines are different sizes, and some of them maybe not connected exactly 100%. So I do think you have seepage and leakage in the lines.
I think there's some, because I know I looked at some of the video, and there's some cracks, there's some holes, there's broken pipe. So, and I know Michael did some investigation on some of these line cleaning services, but nowhere in here did I see any cost to replace lines.
Correct. Correct. We just had an estimate from our Public Works Department that puts in sewer lines. There's a wide variety or wide range of those estimates because you're digging through roads, you're digging in tight areas, so it just depends what level of service you're wanting and what kind of lines you're wanting. Again, so that makes the estimates very difficult because of the specifications aren't defined yet. We're doing rough estimates, you'd say.
So Steve, so this estimate is a new well, or is it taking the existing well further down? These estimates?
It would be a new well drilled on the same site.
Oh, it is the same site?
Correct.
Okay. And that's.
Same area.
Okay.
Because Steve, our current well is collapsing, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
And it would remain to be seen whether a well company would drill right through the same hole.
Right.
That would be, I think, a risk on their part, but they could potentially drill very close to that.
Okay.
Matt?
The 2019 pump, or no, I'm sorry, the 2014, the pump that we have, that is good. Could you use that in the new well, or would you have to get a new type of, I see the estimate for a new pump too. So would you have
Correct.
to get
I think you could use the same pump we have today. I think that would have to be defined in the RFP process or RFQ process that we
I'm
would
just curious
use.
if it's possible.
Correct. I think it is usable.
Okay.
The findings are showing that it could pump if it had adequate water,
Yeah, that's
400,
the problem, doesn't have enough water where the.
400 gallons a minute, correct.
Anybody else? Any other questions? Okay. All right, at this point in time, then, I am going to open the floor and allow for some public comment, but I would remind everybody to please try and keep your comments to 3 minutes. I will be timing. I'll give you a warning at 3 minutes and allow you to wrap up. But we have a lot of speakers, and I'd like to get through them all. And is there, Michael, did I see you have another card back there? Did you have another person who wanted to speak? There are any more cards in here. Okay, all right. Okay, so the first person I have here on my list is Christine. Is it Lambie? And please come to the podium, Christine. And if you would, state your name and give us your address, please. And you can take your mask off when you speak. We'll just ask you to clean the microphone when you get done.
Oh, okay. Well, after a year, we have been here. Nothing happened to the Evergreen.
Christine, can you give me your address too, please? Tell everybody your name and your address.
Oh, okay. My name is Christine Lambie. I live on 919 North Lamberg. And we have, I think, the biggest yard in the whole area. And after a year, we have expected that you are going back to irrigate the whole area again, so that we have an evergreen area again. But now, finally, after a year, you can say what Mr. Miller last time said already a year ago. We can call the area now Ever-Brown, because everywhere you can see a lot of huge trees dying, or they have been already removed because they were dying already. So in our yard also a lot of things like this happened, and I hope that it will really the way that you decide that we get a new pump. I heard just that they have put on the old pump a new one. How should this happen that the new pump can pump the water when the old pump is there? So this is something what my concern is. And it's also no wonder that there is no water coming, because you know maybe that in the soils are everywhere crystals and all kinds of minerals. And if the water is not flowing all the time, then these sands, these crystals, are closing the water lines. And so it's hard then to get water out. So therefore, it's important to get a new water hole and a new turbo pump. I don't know what kind of pump you put in as a second new one on the old one. I have no idea. So maybe somebody can explain that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Miller?
Wanted to bat cleanup, but that's all right.
Well, I'm just taking them in the order I got them.
Steve Miller, 930 North Lindbergh. Lived there for now close to 43 years. So, a couple of things that were asked that I'm going to answer some questions for you, if you don't mind. 500 feet would be the minimum you'd want to go. You'll get sufficient water at 500 feet. You'll be able to service back to probably 40 to 50 customers should they want to. There's still requirements on the landowners to level their lawns, to shape their yards so that they could receive it. But you certainly would get sufficient water to deliver a similar irrigation system that we had 20, 25 years ago. The delivery lines are adequate, don't fill in the cracks. That's what's watering everybody else's trees. That's part of the Evergreen District. Part of that seepage has been a benefit to the area to keep a lot of vegetation alive. And I think you've all probably driven through there and seen how bad it has gotten. But anyway, I would just, I bought that house. That house was originally Lewis Johnson's house. For those that have lived here know who that is. Butch and Linda grew up in that house. And Lori and I have cherished it, but we think we've probably reached the end of life there. It's just, if we can't get back to the Evergreen District or the Evergreen Historical District, and I'm very disappointed in their boards and commissions, whoever handles the historic part. They've never stood up and talked or asked anything about saving this irrigation district, to my knowledge. They never called me. So it was not a high priority to keep that Evergreen District an Evergreen District, which is a shame. But I don't know. You guys have a tough decision. I understand. I would say if you don't refurbish the irrigation district to some kind of usability, I would almost request or strongly ask that you remove the historical district from the area, because that is actually a hindrance to trying to improve your properties. And we've got to figure out a way to bring some new life into the area so we can recapture some value. But you've heard me talk on this, and I can discuss it in length, but I won't take up a lot of time. I've got to really evaluate what's going to be best for Lori and I at this point, and that'll probably fall on a decision that this council makes. So, thank you very much.
Can I ask a question, Mayor?
Go ahead.
Steve, you've had a lot of experience with it. You were on the committee that looked into it. Would you recommend, if we were going to get serious about it, that we drill a new well, or that we try to mess around with the old well?
Oh, you can't even, I wouldn't put another 10 cents in the existing well.
Right.
If you thought you could punch another well in, yeah. And you have to get down to the static water that they referred to. I did my own research as far as checking wells. I I know some people over at Arizona Water, so I had them go in. I didn't even look at the monitoring wells. I wanted to know about the production wells and that they use to supply water to this city. And it's almost identical. Every one of them has dropped 100 feet in 40 years. I mean, they're all at 220 now. They all were at 120 40 years ago. So it's very consistent. This table is dropping. And we have a little bit of a challenge for those that understand the water situation here. Casa Grande sits on what they call the Casa Grande Ridge. So we don't have as deep a aquifer to dive into, but there is water at that level, at that 500-foot mark, though.
Around 500 feet, you think?
Well, you'd want to go to 500 feet so you could have consistency for a while. You'd probably set that well depth at about 300 feet, and you'd have plenty of static water at that point. And I would just use the well that you have, or the pump that you have. It's not the same kind of pump, but it is one that would be adequate to deliver water.
Okay.
Okay. Any other
Thank you.
questions?
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
All right, the next one on my list here is Pam Burke. Pam, are you here? Oh, there you are. You're hiding behind the whole podium.
Hi.
Just state your name and your address, please.
Pam Burke, and I'm at 1017 North Limburg. And up until this year, we were using irrigation, and I think it's a tough decision. But I just have to tell you, I received a letter from Mike Jackson and a memo from Larry Raines. We received it, I think, either Wednesday or Thursday of last week. This is the first correspondence I've ever had regarding it, other than when you've all had this on the agenda. But I've not talked to anybody in my community, in my neighborhood, about the irrigation, either on the phone, in person, or in writing, and I just wanted you to all know that. I wish you luck doing this.
Thank you. Okay, next I have Michael Jackson. She's cleaning it for you, Mike.
Gotta have a cleaner around, I tell you. It's a bad world out there. And I know I'm limited to 3 minutes, but I've been asked to represent a lot of the people that live in that district, and my wife said I could have her 3 minutes because she can't speak for 3 minutes without going into a coughing frenzy, and we can't do that in a COVID outbreak. Could I have 6 minutes? All right.
Hurry.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, staff. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Nancy and I bought our home 40 years ago in the Evergreen Irrigation District. It was a district that we had always wanted to live in. When we bought it, there were 7 doctors in Casa Grande. 6 of them lived in that district, and the 7th one lived a few blocks away. For 30 or 35 years, we had consistent water and 6 producing fruit trees, a Cadota fig tree, a beautiful yard. And then one of the neighbor kids burned the pump down, and his father bought a new pump, and he replaced it with a 1,500 gallon per minute vertical hollow shaft pump, like you see out in the cotton fields, 1,500 gallons a minute. That pump fell apart in 5 years, and at the last meeting, the city testified that they maintained that pump every 5 years. You change the oil in a car more than every 5 years, and the warranty won't last 20 or 30 years normally on that pump, but it's void if you only do it every 5 years. So that pump's gone. The city, for a year, we had no pump at all, and we lost all of our trees and our yard. Our Cadota fig's gone, all the fruit trees are gone, as did most of the others, and we were out there with hoses trying to water. You had an expert from the U of A saying that you can transition to a sprinkler system, but you have to transition knowingly. You can't just go from one to the other, which is what we had to do. The trees that we're watering now, we're putting a 3-foot spike down into the ground to get to the roots. That's how drastic we are to keep the trees alive. They're still there. The brand new pump that went out was a $40,000 pump that we bought, one of our neighbors bought. The city told us if we gave it, we had to give $1,019 if we wanted to have water in the future to buy a new pump. 40 of us, 23 came up with that money. Some of them couldn't afford it. We never got our water. That was 5 years ago. The city has a fiduciary relationship with us, and we weren't involved in the purchase, the selection, or any of the process of getting a new pump. And the new pump is like an apple, and that's like an orange. 1,500 gallons per minute was the one that broke. 300 gallons per minute was the replacement. It's apples and oranges. Wasn't even the same. So some of us, Steve, Jimmy, John, and I formed a little committee to talk to the city to try to negotiate a solution to get our water back. And I share Steve's feelings too. Nancy says she's going to be buried in the yard, so I don't get to move, but it's not the neighborhood that it used to be. The trees are dying. It's kind of ironic. In 1980, when we bought the yard, bought the house, Evergreen Irrigation District, 6 years later, I bought a cactus garden. And so I wanted to put cactus in my front yard. The city manager at that time wrote me a letter, Larry, and said, we will not allow you to put a cactus garden. It's the Evergreen Irrigation District. No cactus gardens there at the Irrigation District. That's how much things have changed since 1986. Now we're being forced to go to cactus or a drip irrigation. The problem with going to a drip irrigation is it costs you between $5,000 and $10,000. Then you're going to buy Arizona water. And I don't know if you guys know this or not, but there's two kinds of water I just learned since March. One is potable water that we drink from the Arizona Water Company. The other is called wet water, which you do from an irrigation ditch, 500 feet deep. What we're doing with the people that have switched over to the drip irrigations, they're using potable water to irrigate their trees instead of wet water, wasting good water. We have tried to meet with the city. The last meeting we had was November 2nd. The city agreed to clean and camera the lines between the pump and Steve Miller's house and my house, which is about a block and a half both. There's 14 boxes between that and there. I physically drove through the neighborhood both days when Ancon was doing their work, 5 times each. I saw them touch 2 boxes out of the 14. And it's kind of like being pregnant. You're pregnant or you're not. You can't clean 2 boxes and call it clean. They all have to be clean. I took water the week after for 10 hours, and the water didn't go from me to Bob. 2 hours before flooded my whole yard, which is bigger than this room. So the water guy said, the system isn't clean, it's not working. I said, I know, Henry, just cut it off. 10 hours is enough. So the meeting didn't work out well. There was no camera. I went to talk to the 2 guys that were doing the work, watched them, wrote notes down where they were on the 18th, where they were on the 19th, and we paid them $2,890 for about 7 hours worth of work. They didn't do the job. The water table dropping, like Steve said, there's 2 different measurements. I have a friend, a lot of you know him, he has Blotty Thode's old house, 6 blocks away from our well. He had Hoover clean his pump this week. They had to pull the whole pump and clean it all. And since they did it 4 years ago, the water table has dropped 1 foot. That's 6 blocks away. So the water table isn't dropping hundreds of feet for this district. It dropped 1 foot in 4 years. As far as using, Christine Lambie's husband is an engineer, and he wrote Larry a letter describing what the odds are in using that well again. A well that's abandoned or misused like that well has been is worthless. You cannot get it back again because an engineer knows these terms, but it crystallizes, it changes its chemical formation, and it's wasting good money after bad. I've talked to at least a half dozen guys that drill wells, and nobody will go through all of that crap with their bits. It'll ruin $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 worth of bits just to get through that. And then the well isn't going to work anyway because it's changed in its composition over the years. All of the people that I talked to, and I've talked to 20 or 30 people in the last year, say a new well is needed. People that drill wells, people like Christine's husband, engineers. We've got 2 engineers that agree with him. So we need a new well. I contacted, and in your packets, I think you saw, I talked to at least 7 different people that drill wells both in the valley and here. It's all $300 a foot is the standard price, no matter if you're in Chandler or Casa Grande. All of them said 500 feet, so we're at 150,000 there for a new well. And the well doesn't have to be a block away, it can be right over there. And there's no problem with doing that. The inconvenience that we've had at Badillon's for the last 3 weeks with Southwest Gas digging their new line is nothing compared to putting a new well in. I talked to at least a half dozen people that clean the wells. Donna Kerr brought up the subject that maybe she'll talk about more, but on Lemberg, there's 100 palm trees, and those palm trees.
Michael, you're at 7 minutes, so.
Oh, sure, I'm sorry.
I gave you some extra time.
Those palm trees won't live if you put in a new system over here. You have to use the old system, and the 2 bids you have will clean the old system like it's never been cleaned before. It hasn't been touched in 6 years. But the 2 bids, I brought those people down, they looked at it, and they're ready to go to work tomorrow. I thank you for your time. Thank you, Donna. You know, Craig, I'm a stickler for time too, and time is precious, but this is a very big decision you guys have to make tonight. And one of you had told me that you're going to have to answer to your constituents about spending so much money. The other thing is you're responsible for your actions. We wouldn't be here today if those wells had been if those pumps had been maintained, the well would still be working. So we didn't get here on our accord. We're still here. It's somebody that did the job wrong. There's negligence someplace. I'm not pointing fingers at anybody, but somebody dropped the ball, and we shouldn't have to lose the homes that we've lived in 30 and 40 years over that mistake. You need to pay for your mistake, and in your packets, the bid is $300,000. And I think the city can afford the $300,000 as opposed to losing an asset. It's an asset like the downtown community or the lakes or Valago or any other asset you have to show off. It's been here for 80 years. And we hope that you make the right decision tonight and share our concerns for turning the Evergreen District back into the One quick story about the water. Maybe you know Bill Scott. He had the home that was the gate to our community across from on Lemberg and 9th Street. Big pink house, big yard, big trees. The first year that the water well broke, he spent $7,000 with Arizona Water to keep his yard looking beautiful. He died, the family sold it, and the people that bought it couldn't afford $7,000. And the yard is gone. The trees are gone. The bushes are gone. And even the oleanders are starting to stress out. But all that beautiful yard that Bill Scott lived in 40 years it's all dead. And you don't have to go too far. You can go down any home in our neighborhood in the backyard. They're all dead. We're just keeping the front yards looking good. So I would appreciate consideration. It's not about the money. It's about the responsibility to do what's right. And keeping the Evergreen Irrigation District as an asset to the community, I think, is a no-brainer. And I hope you'll agree with us tonight. Are there any questions?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So, Michael, you know, Ms. Burke, well, thank you for coming, and obviously this is a difficult decision, and we've all been working on it for a long time, trying to come up with a solution. But, you know, of course, it concerns me when Ms. Burke mentions that she hasn't heard anything. And so my concern is, you know, we only have 6 people using, which I understand why. It's not producing enough water. There's some issues, so I understand why people have gone off the system. But if the city were to invest in building this new well, you know, would more people come on board, and how do we guarantee that? I mean, when I drove around the neighborhood today, people are not maintaining their yards.
No, it's
at all.
depressing. It's expensive.
It is. I grew up here. I walked through that neighborhood all the time, and it is depressing.
My next door water, her bill is $300, and that's just for the front yard. Her back tree, 70-foot pine tree, the wind that was in here in March where you guys said you lost a lot of trees, that tree fell luckily to the west. If it had fallen to the east, it would have killed everybody in the house. The bill is $10,000 to remove that tree. And that's only one, Lisa. There's a bunch of them in that area that are either down or going to go down.
Well, and I'm just concerned that how many people are going to really use it. I mean, is it the 6 people that really care?
You had
some
40.
people have converted over.
You had 40.
But are there 40? I mean, how do we know there's 40?
I have no way of predicting that.
Right.
I know if you don't do it, you're going to lose an asset to the community. And like Donna said earlier, the last time we were here, you had an expert from the U of A, Rick Gibson, and he had a term, terminal velocity, which means if you have 100 palm trees that we have, and one of them falls down because you've moved the water line or it has no water line, the other 99 are going to fall too. It's just a matter of time, but they all will fall. And they have had no water, and they need to get water soon. But I have no idea, Lisa, how many people. My suggestion was for you guys to offer free water for 1 year. How much would that set you back? And I bet all 40 of them would join again. But
Well,
I asked for
I'm
five.
just surprised we haven't heard from those 40 people.
We
you
haven't
know,
heard from the
or
Historical
60.
Society either.
So,
It hasn't
right.
been an issue. But we made 5 public record requests to find out information, we got no information. I went to APS to find out what that well cost a year for you guys. They said you have to do a public records thing. I said, we did that, we couldn't find out. So I went through some other channels and I found out about what it is. You're not losing money on the electricity if you had the people that you had 5 years ago using it. It's not, you're not subsidizing us. I mean, we spent $70,000 on pumps in the last 10 years. And we don't have anything to show for it. No, I share your concern. It's a tough decision, but it's not really. You got to be responsible for your actions. Somebody put us here, and you need to get us out of here.
I was gonna,
Oh, he did, okay. Go ahead, Mr. Powell.
yeah, the number of trees that have died is amazing. And there's a eucalyptus tree by our house.
Yeah, big, that's the biggest on the block.
It's huge, and it's 60 inches off the curb, which the city, I think, has the right of way to exceed that. My concern is that thing's gonna fall down. It was a healthy tree while we had the water, and over time, it hasn't got water, and it's drying up, and it's dangerous.
Yeah, and it's
And
gonna
my
fall.
house and another house are sitting right there. I mean, I've got a
No, that's the
granddaughter
tallest,
wanting to go into a bedroom, and I'm afraid to put her in that bedroom if that thing ever falls.
that's the tallest tree on the block, Dick.
Yeah,
And it's just as susceptible to dying as those palm trees are. The palm trees are a little more, what's the word, rigid? They can last a little longer, but everything needs water, and they need water now.
the other thing is, like on the eucalyptus, it's probably not gonna come back, but somebody, for safety reasons, in the city needs to evaluate those things as how dangerous they can be and get them out of the way if they're dead.
Well, if you don't vote to put the money forward tonight, I can almost guarantee you that you'll spend more than that in the future for litigation for having to clean up the mess that there's gonna be in the next 5 years. I can almost predict that, Lisa, just knowing what's happening and what's gonna happen as far as those trees dying. And if my neighbors had fallen on the house, you'd have 2 corpses. Instead, it killed every tree in their backyard. And now they're spending $10,000 to get it out of there. And it was a healthy tree till 5 years ago.
All right, thank you, Michael.
Thanks for the time, Craig, I appreciate it. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
I know it's a tough decision, it's probably one of the toughest ones you guys have had to make, but I just hope you'll do the right thing, and I did put 500 in each of your packets, didn't I? Was that enough, Lisa?
Only 250 in mine.
Oh,
You know, Mayor.
You must have forgotten
Help us,
me.
Brett, help us, Brett.
Before Michael if he leaves the room, I
He's
just.
not he's not leaving.
Well, before he walks away from the podium. Michael, first of all, thank you. Thank you for providing the information. I got your packet this morning. I wish I had it a little bit sooner.
That's my
because
fault.
For those of us at work, to try to have time.
Well, I didn't know where
to
you
read
and
it.
Bob lived, you guys are so
And
secretive.
so- I'm easy to find. But there's a couple things that you said that bother me, and I want to mention it to you.
Sure, you bet.
Because I respect you as a homeowner, I respect you as a business person. When you mentioned the records request, and you said that you requested them and got nothing, that bothers me. So I certainly want to follow up, because that's a right if it's a public records request. So I do want to find out where that was.
Well, Jimmy was gonna apply for it, but I knew that it would take 2 weeks to get it, and he and Donna were on vacation.
Okay, but there's a difference from applying for it and requesting it.
No, I
and not
requested
getting
it. I talked to Myra and
I'm
requested
concerned
it.
about your right as a citizen, that wasn't taken care of. And then, to Lisa's point, she had mentioned about, the people that you talked about that you represent. And then Ms. Burke mentioned that she had never received any information. It concerns me about who that group is that you represent. And every person that lives in that district is important to me. But I haven't heard from many of them. And so that concerns me. And I'm not disputing what you're saying. I'm just saying that it's hard for me to get a handle on that when I haven't gotten that information from them, or I don't have names And I know and I appreciate the fact of what you and Mr. Miller and the Kerrs have done, because you live in that district, you love that district, and it is a beautiful asset to our community. And it is a hard decision for us to make.
Well, I did ask for 5 public records. One was the revenue and expenses, got nothing. One was how the city came up with $450,000 to $700,000 to do the new lines, got no explanation there. I'm not making this up. I've got the applications and I can show you, there's no answers to all 5 of them. And maybe the reason you haven't heard from people lately is, this is a true story. I talked to a few people in my neighborhood about getting involved, and they're saying, screw them. They don't care about us. They dropped the ball on us a long time ago. They're not going to do anything for us. People have just given up hope in you guys listening to them. That's why a lot of people quit coming.
Right.
And that's being
Well,
frank with you.
and
That's
I do
true.
appreciate that.
I can tell you their names and they'll vouch for it, but they just gave up and they said, we don't have the energy for it anymore. The city's not listening to us. And you haven't been so far.
Well, in all due respect, I have. Thank you.
I know all of you have heard me. I have a real loud voice. But I just hope that you would do something tonight constructive to save the Evergreen Irrigation District as an asset, or just take off, like they said, to take our name off of it.
Matt, go ahead.
Matt?
Thanks for coming, Michael. You and I have talked about this a lot, oftentimes. Quick question, back to Steve Miller's, and I don't want people to think we don't care, because we do. I spend more time perusing over this and see, in internal conflict, because we've got people that love this community, that live here. We've got, a part of our community. We've also got another community to ask for the money. And we did, I say in good faith in my eye, I was told this pump was gonna, the last pump we did, it was gonna work great. And I took that. It didn't. We know that. So this pump we have, they say it's good. Steve said it's good. If there's a new well, would that pump be adequate in your opinion? Because you've done a lot of, I know you're not a well expert, but you said you've talked to 20 people.
I'm not a well expert, but I know a whole lot more about water than I should.
Correct.
There's 3 aspects. You have to have a well, you have to have a pump, and you have to have a delivery system. I mentioned earlier, our delivery system has not been touched in 6 years. So it doesn't matter how good a pump you've got, and I talked to Mike at Empire, and the pump works, that's fine. But if it can't get through the delivery system, it doesn't matter how well it works. And that well is not functional anymore, according to Miss Lambie's husband, the guys I talked to.
That's undisputed. I
Yeah,
think that
we need
well's
a new
no
well.
good. I think I believe that well is no good. I don't know if the old pump is still in there. I've heard that. Is it still in the bottom where it caved in, or?
No, I heard the new old pump doesn't work, is according to Henry.
No,
the
but
water.
there's someone said that, Miss Lambie said that the pump was underneath the old one, I think.
It's a submersible pump is what
No,
you
but the
replace.
old pump before that was still in there. Is that?
No, the bowls are down there, Matt,
Yeah,
in the
okay.
bottom. And that's what the debris is in the
Yeah.
bottom, where you can't get a drill
I get
bit
it,
through
yeah.
there.
No,
'Cause
because
those-
last time we talked about this, called a friend of mine who runs the Roosevelt Water District. He came down, drove the district with me, came to our meeting, looked at it, told me the same thing. Wells are actually more complicated than you think, but I've learned quite a bit too. So that's what I was wondering about the pump. And I think, I don't want to be having this, I just want it to work, right?
Yeah.
I wish we weren't having this conversation, but I do kind of take offense that we haven't done anything, because, we, in good faith, have and it's not, I don't know if it's enough for you, but, we're trying. and
Matt,
we're
we
still
haven't
dealing-
gotten any water at all since we signed a contract with you. We have a breach of contract. You gave us an offer. Give us $1,000 and we'll give you
I don't know,
water.
I'm not a lawyer, but, yeah, I mean.
I'm not a
we did
lawyer
do
either,
that,
but I know the
thought-
law, and I've talked to a dozen lawyers, and they said, yeah, you have a contract. You made us an offer, we accepted with our money, we're waiting for performance. There hasn't been any performance.
And I agree.
None of the
I mean, the
23
well
of us
hasn't
have gotten any water since we gave you our $1,000. That's called breach of contract, and there is a remedy for that. And I don't want to do a remedy for that. I'd like the remedy to be with you guys tonight and do the right thing and just give us the water back, and then we don't have to do this.
That's what I'm trying to, I think it's going the wrong way, because I don't want to get into that. But yeah, I agree that the well or the last pump that's put in isn't working how we wanted it to.
Well, the worst thing for a pump, from what I've heard, is pumping air.
Correct.
They would rather it pump sand. It'll work longer pumping sand than pumping air. And that's what Henry, the guy that does the water, said it was doing. It was pumping water. But like Mrs. Lambie's husband said, because the nature of that well has changed physically, it isn't a good well. It should be abandoned. So don't hope you get any
All
water.
right, Michael, well, I'm going to conclude this. We're going to be
Michael,
talking about this all
You're
night.
welcome. Just write a check, Matt. You got the money.
All right, thank you, Michael. We'll have time for further discussion, so if you have other comments, I'm not trying to cut you guys off, just we need to.
Thank you.
Okay, the last speaker I have here is is Joanne Michelson. Joanne?
Hello, I'm Joanne Michelson, 809 North Lemberg. And first of all, what I want to do is start with Mary.
Okay.
Mary, when you were driving back and forth to Seton when you were in high school, and you say something happened to the car, and you came in and told your dad, Dad, the car doesn't work, but there's $15,000 for this Mustang here. Can we get that? What would your dad say?
He bought us a Volkswagen that was used.
No, what would your dad say after
He bought us a Volkswagen
when
that was
when the
used.
car didn't work? Let me make a point. Would your dad say, "Oh, sure, here's some money," or would you say, "What's wrong with it?" And you'd say, "I don't know." Well, maybe we should take it to a mechanic and have him look at it and see what's wrong with it before we spend some money. Is that pretty much? I mean, I knew your dad. He was logical. He would have thought like that, right? Well, one problem I have, or not one, but numerous, is accountability. Basically, it was like 2 years ago, and we heard, pump doesn't work. You know, it's broken. Now, one would assume that you would basically pull the pump out to see what was wrong with it. But nothing happened for a year. You want to know what happened to all the people that were on the irrigation? Because nothing happened. And that's why people are giving up, because nothing happened, because there was no accountability, you know. Now, I assumed when I heard it, you know, that it was broken. I really thought somebody had checked to see if it was broken, but no one had. No one checked to see if it was broken for a year. That doesn't seem like there's any due diligence here on trying to get it fixed, does it? Then I hear at a meeting, and basically it was the one that he was talking about the irrigation, that they had cleaned out all the lines. And I sat there, and unlike myself, I kept my mouth shut because he said they're all clean, and I knew they weren't. You know why I knew they weren't? Because I knew the pipe in front of my house hadn't moved, which means no one had gone through there. And basically water would be coming out, things would be falling down, there'd be something. But I knew that, and I kept my mouth shut because I was trying to be nice. But I think there has to be accountability to employees of the city who basically say this, oh yeah, we did it, and then it's not done. You know, to whoever you contract with. Gee, if you go to a dentist and the dentist says, okay, that'll be $5,000, and you go, but you didn't really replace my tooth. Well, I did, but you know, you just don't see it. There's no accountability here with the city workers. They say what they want to say, and there's no one accountable, you know. And it's like, well, can I blame Larry for all this? No, because he can't go around checking everybody. But the thing is, someone has to be accountable for this. This has been going on for probably over 2 years, if we want to look at the calendar and see. But nothing was done to check the pump for a year. Gee. So that kind of shows you how serious anyone was about getting it fixed.
So that's not my understanding. My understanding, Larry, is that we were doing something. We were checking that.
I have a number of responses that I'd like to provide the mayor and council that I think will tie it all together.
Okay, if you'll bring that,
yes.
because I'm going to say my knowledge is we have been doing something. May not be right exactly what everybody wanted or whatever, but it's been at the forefront as far as council is concerned for at least 2 years, if not more.
Well,
so for you to say that nothing was done and that it sat there for a year, I have to disagree.
Your guy that works for the city was here. He said in 2019, they pulled the pump. That's 1 year ago, not 2. This has been going on for over 2 years, just like you said. But wouldn't that be the first step, is to pull the pump and see what's wrong with it? Maybe there's a spark plug that's needed. I don't know. I don't know about pumps. You know, I can tell you, Mary, that basically one time I had 2 lights go out, and I'm like, oh my God, my electric went off. And I went out in the yard and put this thing up, and I'm pulling it and trying to reset it. Had my next door neighbor who was an electrician, he came over. Joanne, you need to change the light bulb. Sometimes you need to check to see what's wrong before you can fix it. And making assumptions.
So you're saying that for 2 years.
No, I'm saying for 1 year.
For 1 year, this past year or the year before?
The year before.
The year before, nothing was done.
I'm saying that no one checked the pump.
No one checked the pump, okay.
No one checked the pump.
And I will tell you what, I will definitely look into that, because that's not what I've been told, what we've been told, what reports we've seen. So you're saying nobody checked the pump for a year.
No, they just said it was broken.
And then we go into another. And so I'll wait, and I'll give the city the opportunity to be able to.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, to
You
be
know,
able to answer to that, because.
But it was, you know, that's why I asked you about the car.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you normally go to a mechanic and find out what's wrong with it
And I
before you
believed-
reacted?
And it was my belief that that's what we did.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, any questions? I didn't think so.
I just have a comment. Larry covered this in his weekly report that we get, and there were 3 articles from 1952 about the city council dealing with Evergreen Water District and the pump. And it's the same thing we're talking about today. It's been going on a lot longer than 2 years.
It's a different pump.
Well, it's the same well. Go ahead, Larry. You had some comments you were going to make.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, just to try to summarize a number of points here that were raised this evening. And again, I realize, I think I said this a year ago in August, this is not an easy decision. I've said it 100 times to the citizens, the residents, the neighbors, and I've said it to staff and to the mayor and council. This is a very difficult decision. But I want to try to provide a little bit of clarity, at least to some of the comments tonight. And I understand that everybody has a different perspective of what's transpired to some degree. But I think the mayor actually stole my opening comments that I was going to make, that if you look back in time, all the way back to 1953 is what we actually could find records. This council, this staff, and the residents of the Evergreen area have ultimately been debating about the same 3 topics: the depth of the wells, the water levels, the pump repairs, and the aging infrastructure, and the reality of the reduced number of customers that have slowly dwindled to the point of where we're at. And I have no doubt that some of the comments that were made by the residents there, it's probably a combination of reasons as to why we find ourselves where we're at.
It also dealt with who's going to pay for it.
And I'm going to get there in a second here as well, Mayor. To specifically to Ms. Michelson's comments about 2 years, she's right in the sense that we've been dealing with this for 2 years from a standpoint of, in 2014, when we replaced, if the council recalls, we thought was a well that went out in 2013 or 14. What we found is that not only was it the well that went out, the pump that went out, we had a well that had collapsed at roughly 218 feet, which essentially meant that the static water level had dropped, and that the pump that was on the system at that point likely burned out as a result of, as Michael Jackson pointed out, trying to actually pump air, right? And so at that point in time, there was a fair amount of dialogue. We had several meetings, and there's a number of individuals that attended those community meetings as we were essentially trying to decide what we were going to do with this particular piece of infrastructure. And at that point in time, the decision was made to, because of the condition of the well size, to lessen the size of the well casing, put a new well casing into roughly 218 feet, is that right, Steve? And then put a submersible pump And the thought was, quite frankly, the hope was that we were going to be able to get some level of volume that would continue to serve, at that point, the 22 customers that we had on the system that elected to stay on the system in 2014. What we found is that it started out okay. I think that the residents here would tell you that it did not pump with the volume that the former pump and well did. It did not. But we were at least getting some level of water. There was some level of irrigation water that ran there for a number of years. And then there were a number of residents, i.e. our friend Mr. Miller, i.e. our friend Mr. Jackson, that began to say, hey, Larry, we're not getting the type of volume that we even started with when this pump was installed. We're getting less, your rates are going up, but we're getting less and less and less volume. But yet there were others that were ultimately still seeing some level of water production. And so 2 years ago, what we found is that there were still some residents, some of the customers that were receiving water, again, not to the volume it was pre new well casing and pump, and there were others that began to see a decline. We were uncertain about what was driving that. We thought it could have been the pump. I think our conclusion as a staff was this is likely going to be a pump issue. But as we began to evaluate what we were finding, more and more of the professionals in the industry, certainly not myself, began to say, you've got other issues. You've got issues dealing with the well conditions. And so by the time we found ourselves before the council in August of 2019, if you go back and look at the documents, and you go back and look at what we articulated at that point in time, we were uncertain about the well condition, but we knew for a fact that we had a well that had been damaged at 218 feet, and it was just not reaching any of the water to generate sufficient volume for irrigation. And at that point in time, the mayor and council tabled the decision. We had asked the mayor and council to essentially discontinue the operations of the system at that point. You gave us direction to form a neighborhood group and meet with them. And I will tell you that I was happy to do that as a staff. Our staff met with the individuals that were part of that group. I felt like it was a very open communication the entire time we met. And because of the concern of the fact that what I would consider to be that no one really wants to agree to the fact that the well is broken at 218 feet, we decided to pull the pump. We pulled that pump, and what we found is that there was no damage to it. They did indicate that it's likely at its maximum, if you had good conditions all around it, could pump roughly 400 gallons per minute. Originally, we had hoped for 300. It wasn't even pumping 100 at that point. So we pulled the pump. The professional company ultimately ended up evaluating the pump. They looked at the well site. They said, your issue is the well casing. It's not the pump. Well, we brought that back to the committee, and the committee ultimately said, I think it's more than that. It could be the conditions of the transmission lines. And at that point in time, we agreed, as Mr. Jackson had pointed out, we agreed to actually clean a portion of line that was, in fact, it was intentionally done. It was intentionally done because both Mr. Jackson and Mr. Miller had seen a sharp decline in the amount of irrigation that they were getting comparatively to others and we were trying to understand that. Did we have broken pipes? Did we have blockage? Did we have whatever it may be? We wanted to try to understand. We know that the pump is in good condition. What's causing the issue? If we're not buying the fact that the well is damaged, and the pump is working, what's causing the issue? And in fact, we did engage the sewer cleaning company that ultimately cleans all of our sewer lines. They have the professional equipment to do it. They charge us by the hour, and we specifically clean that area in hopes that if the pump is working fine and everybody wants to buy the fact that the water table is at a good level and the casing isn't broke, then it's going to generate some level of irrigation to the members that had seen it essentially dwindle to nothing. What we found is that we did clean it. They spent 2 days cleaning out those two particular sections of line. We did not engage that company to actually do a video at that point. We did it because we knew that we could take other measures to do that, and as Mr. Hardesty pointed out, we got a camera, we went in, we took the video ourselves. And I think that what you will find, there are some pictures included in your council packet. I handed out a few more today. We do have the full video of those two lines that we've taken. I think the description of that, of what was done is accurate. That there was some cleaning, there wasn't a fair amount of debris, although there was some debris that was cleaned out of those two lines. There is still some settlement in some areas. You have a lot of sand and dirt and silt that sits at the bottom of those. And as Mr. Hardesty pointed out, there's some separation in the pipes. There's a variety of other things that have happened simply because of the age. But I don't think you're going to get an argument from staff that if you had an adequate well set at the right depth, that with the pump that we have, that we could ultimately continue to irrigate this area. How many customers would we have? I'm not sure. I would guess probably we would start with 10. There may be more than that. There could be up to 22. There could be more. We are uncertain. A number of these individual residents have elected to move to a desert landscape or other types of landscape, irregardless of what's transpired with the irrigation. But ultimately, besides the well condition, and I'm happy to hear at least tonight that people are starting to recognize that really what we've got is a well casing that's collapsed at 218 feet. The drivers behind the city staff's decision has simply been the protocols, the city code that drives the responsibility and costs of this system. And there's a city code that was actually executed in 1986 that ultimately put the onus of these major capital repairs on the customers. And as everybody knows, the more the reduced customer, the higher amount that you're going to actually have to be responsible for in these capital purchases. The last two deals and the last two repairs that we've made, and I know Mr. Jackson talked about the fire in 1991, I think, when that's happened. We had a major repair in 2014, we had a major repair in 2003, and both of those occurred during the tenure that I've been here, and then they also had a major repair in 1994. All of those scenarios have resulted in special assessments that have been passed on to the homeowners in this particular case. And so ultimately, I guess the point that I want to make is that I understand the emotions are high. I understand that individuals want to, it is much more efficient. There's no doubt. It's much more efficient if everything's working effectively to utilize these types of irrigation systems to irrigate these larger lots with a lot of vegetation. That's just the reality of it. There's no doubt that the majority of these homes were built assuming that there was going to be some type, and with the vegetation and landscape. But a couple of things that I would like to point out is that, number one, is that just like the infrastructure in the well and the transmission line and the pump has aged, trees age, the vegetation ages, and at some point in time, there's a useful life on some of that, on some of those items. I'm not advocating that we shouldn't look to find ways to resolve that. I'm just simply saying that some of this is due to how long those plant materials have been there. I know they have a useful life much longer than me. I get that.
Larry, when was this well originally drilled?
It's my understanding. I'm going to say 1928.
1928. Okay.
Is that right, Steve?
That's what it says on. That's what it says on the old presentation. Is 28.
That's right. Right.
And then the question I have is there an irrigation district, or is this just what we're calling it? Is it? It's the Evergreen District, and this is the irrigation for the Evergreen District.
Mr. Mayor, there is not a formal Evergreen irrigation district.
Okay.
There's
Because
not.
we keep calling it the Evergreen, Historic Evergreen Irrigation District.
The staff refers to it as the Evergreen Irrigation System.
Okay.
We do have the Evergreen Historic District, which is under code, has been pointed out. It was ultimately designated by council as a special place in the community.
Okay.
Which is one of the reasons why it makes it a difficult decision to make.
Right. Okay. Mr. Powell.
Larry, it seems that there's no doubt that our only option, if we want to continue, is to drill a new well.
That's right.
And I think those are things we need to look into. We've got, Michael sent us quite a number of bids, and I think we should look into that. I mean, this is my, the thing you find is that the people that live in the Evergreen District spend a lot of money on the vegetation, which makes it the Evergreen District, the trees and the shrubs and all those things that have taken great pride in that for quite a long period of time. And one by one, they've run out, and you were nailing it. We need to drill a new well if we want to continue to do it. And it would be, I think, interesting to me to find out, to look into it more and see actually what it would cost, because there would be a number of people, I'm sure, that would get back in it if they were assured they were going to get enough water. And that's what happened. You just finally ran out of water and ran out of customers because of it. So I really personally would like to see us, this doesn't have to be made tonight, a decision on what we do, but I would like us to at least consider looking into drilling a new well, where it could happen, what it could cost, and how many people might be interested in going back. When this thing first began, I withdrew from the irrigation thing because I didn't want, as a councilman, to feel like I was doing something to benefit myself. But I think now, as I say, there's so many people that have taken such good care, and the trees are dying and the bushes are dying, and this is actually what I remember McCoy, or one of the ones from up in Glendale, said happened when they ceased to water some of what they had. They die away, and I think that the truth is that if you got down to 500 feet on a new well, is that life would be good, and that and this could provide water to more than just the irrigation district if it was creating that amount of water. But we don't know the answers to that.
Mary?
So if we do that, and according to the 1986 code, were these 10 people going to be responsible for that?
Technically.
Who's going to be paying for that? So is there a willingness and a will to do that? Because we do have that ordinance. So we're deciding for them that we're going to spend $500,000 and then turn around and assess the 10 people. Is that what it comes down to?
Well, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I don't know that I would recommend approaching it under that manner, at least in my mind. If it's the council's desire for us to evaluate the potential of a new well, and I want to caution the council from the standpoint that at least some of the feedback that we've received from the well drillers is that, number one, is that the footprint that we've got our well on today, it may be very difficult to add another well. I think you've heard us say that a year ago, that I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm simply saying that there could be challenges with that. The second is that it is highly likely that the cost to drill a new well on that existing footprint with all of the casing and those types of things, that there is a chance that the cost could be elevated because of the potential risk of drilling into casing and a variety of other things. Again, I'm not advocating that it can't be done. I'm simply saying that is some of the feedback that we've received. I know that there's been a couple of the residents that have suggested drilling a new well. I'm only assuming that they're suggesting that it be drilled on that existing site. In our research, we have not been able to find another location within that area that could ultimately connect into the transmission lines, that a well could be built and still service.
That's not really my question is whatever is decided to do, if we decide to go forward and spend money, is who pays for it?
Ultimately, there is a code that puts the onus on the customers of the system. All right, but with that being said, Councilmember Courtson, I will tell you that, at least in my view, in the time that I've been here, and I outlined the times that we've done other pump repairs, the council has agreed to share in some level of cost because of the value of the district the value of the historic district component of that and the trees and the landscape that's gone on. This is obviously the biggest cost that we have experienced, at least in the last 2 decades. And I only issue one additional piece of caution, and that is that we've talked a little bit about the transmission lines. The only reason that the staff elected to add that number to the mayor and council's item, it wasn't to dissuade you from making a decision on the well. It was simply to let you know that if the decision is made to drill a new well and to get a higher volume of water, we have been advised from a staff perspective, whether it happens, I'm not sure, is that the conditions of that transmission line, that there could be additional issues in the transmission lines once you do that. Again, I'm not saying that to dissuade or discourage, I'm simply giving a round of caution that there could be additional costs coming behind this. And so, Councilmember Courtson, in the past, what we've typically done when the council has given staff guidance to essentially evaluate a cost and to determine what type of a solution or equation that would come before the mayor and council. We have met with the neighborhood, and Mr. Jackson was just suggesting that he would like to speak again about another potential meeting, that we would typically meet with the homeowners in that neighborhood and try to determine exactly who would be interested and outline the potential costs to them.
Larry, one of the things I think that's important, it's not free water. People pay for the water that they get, just like you pay your water bill, Arizona Water or whatever else. This is something they pay for, and as I say, they put a lot of money into the greenness of the area by watering like that. There's a lot of areas where your trees are gonna die unless you can get that flood water in there. And so, I think if you put so much money up to look into it, and I'm not saying that it's gonna happen, but that over a period of time, you don't pay it back the day you do it. But over a period of time, I think the city could get paid back by the cost of the water that's being sent out to the customers. Now, it would be important to generate enough customers to make it feasible economically, and I think Michael and Steve know about what it would take possibly.
Matt, you had a comment?
Yeah, a couple. Larry, thank you for very logical, step-by-step, and very well-thought-out comments on that. I wanted to raise a couple more things, stuff I've heard in the community, stuff I talked to Larry about. Number one, Arizona Water Company does serve that area. They have no interest in that well, if I'm mistaken. It's not that it hasn't been thought. I personally asked Larry to see if Arizona Water would give a special rate to that area because of it's that area, and they can't do that legally because of corporation commission laws. So we have been thinking about this, real quick, we have been thinking about this a lot. And the other thing is to
Please don't talk out of turn if you want. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Ma'am.
And the other important thing is what was just brought up by my colleagues here is, I think back to 1953, even back my few years on the council, 10, 12, we've been kicking this down the road and patching it and doing this. And if we move forward with something, a new well, I think we all agree that that would be the first step if it would get to that. We need a plan to figure out how it's going to be paid for and down the future, because if we want to preserve this area, this evergreen historic area, it needs to have a long-term plan, because this is the biggest part of that area. And I think that's one of the things that hasn't happened before, just like we will patch it here. And we've done it, and again, I think we did what we thought was right at the time. No one has any malicious intent against this area. I think, we thought, that'll work, and that'll keep it watering and keep the trees, and it hasn't worked, unfortunately. So the thing is getting that plan together about how, and it's interesting, just before a lot of you got here, we had a CFD meeting, which is a real community facilities district over in Villago. Granted, a lot more homes there. And they're assessed for their infrastructure. So something like that, maybe, and I know that gets very complicated legally and whatnot, but, I want to bring it all up because I want people to know how much we have been thinking about this. And I'm not saying it's right, I'm just throwing this out there. Steve's looking at me. But there's certain things we need to figure out the plan for. Steve and I, when Steve was on council, we had a meeting upstairs, I still remember, and I just said, and when you look at this on the surface, fiscally, it doesn't appear responsible, but when you look at the people and you look at the value, that's it. But I do want to say one more thing about the Evergreen, is that it kind of got gutted a couple years ago because people wanted to get out of the area. So it's kind of, and that's what people wanted. So that's what's been happening. So that's how we got to figure out how, if we can, how it's going to be taken care of long-term. So, Mayor's looking at me.
Okay,
He didn't put the
I
3
know there are
minutes on.
some other people who want to say something, so as soon as we're done up here, we'll allow you 3 minutes only to wrap up. All right. Bob?
Mayor and my fellow council members, it pains me to take this position, but I'm going to say it anyway. These are good people, and we're all trying to figure out what's best for them. And I agree with that. I hate to do anything that doesn't benefit them. But the fact is that fiscal responsibility is our #1 job. We have to watch out for the resources of the city. And we have 60,000 people in our community. And I find it impossible to support something of this magnitude that is going to benefit only a handful of people. I've heard all the buzzwords, the lush landscaping in the Evergreen District. I know it, I have enjoyed it over the years, but it's personal property. I understand that we call it an asset to the community, but it's an asset to those people. Other people can drive down the street and enjoy it, but it's not a public park. They can't go there and enjoy the grass and the trees and everything. I think that the ordinance that was passed that says that the users of the irrigation have to bear the cost, that's the same in any other HOA, any other community, and we're not looking for ways to supplement those communities. I feel bad for what's going on there, but I don't think I can commit to public funds to try to resurrect this thing. And the wish list of, well, if we build it up and it works properly, maybe more people will come into it. We're not riding a trend of lush landscaping on private residences. We're riding a trend of cutting back, and desert landscaping can conserve water. That's not what new homeowners moving into this area are going to be looking for. I just don't believe that they're going to want to tag on to an irrigation system that there's an expense to, and not only an expense for today and for receiving that water, but if they sign up for it, they're signing up for future repairs and future expansion of that. So, as I said, it pains me. I respect everybody that's in this room right now. I'm listening to them. I feel their pain on this, but I cannot see my way clear to support trying to resurrect this thing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Donna?
Just a couple, Larry, clarification, because they had said the last 2 months that they haven't received water. We have not charged them, is that correct?
No.
That is correct. They only pay for water when they're actually
pay the
receiving
electricity.
water.
Okay, but they have, okay. And then the other thing is that several people have mentioned the historic district, and I know that, the Historic Commission has in the past been diligent about making sure that people are in compliance. Because of the landscaping issue, I'm curious, and it probably can't be answered tonight, but I would like to know if anybody has received any kind of non-compliant letter or something because of landscaping, because of this, because I don't think it's fair to those homeowners that might have happened too. So
No,
maybe we
landscaping
can
is
follow
not
up on
part of
that.
it. Landscaping is not part of that historic district.
Okay, so the trees that are dying out and stuff, and I guess that was my question, is that I want to make sure that the citizens
You
are.
can do whatever you want to your landscaping in the
Okay,
historic
thank you.
district.
Okay, and yeah, excuse me, you're not to talk. Please, I'll give you an opportunity, please. Thank you. Okay, so is there any other comments from the council before I allow additional comments?
No, you can have them.
Okay. I think, Mr. Miller, you had actually waved at me first, so I'll give you the floor.
But did he wink?
Just real quick, you all hit.
Is that microphone on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Should be.
If you think you want to go forward with something, here's what needs to be done. It needs to be formed into a district. So that it,
No.
Can be set aside.
They can't hear
There,
outside.
yeah, it's on now. Go ahead,
Okay.
sorry, but a little too high. Thank you.
There we go.
Okay, all right?
Okay.
It needs to be formed into a district. Yeah, that, you were right on it, Matt. So that every property there is assessed, whether they use it or they don't use it. I mean, it sounds crazy, but that's how districts work. Then you would be able to establish, a
Funding
bank
source.
account, and you'd have money, and you could assess properties for repairs in the future and down the road, and there would be normal maintenance and those types of things. I know the horse already left the barn. That should have probably been done in 1982, the very year that the 1980 Groundwater Act was passed. The city, I found the documents where the city recorded that well in the system in 1982. And, that probably would have been the best time to do that. But if you drill a new well, it's got to be set up with a district where the entire area benefits from it. That's all I really wanted to say.
All right, thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Michael, you were next.
Thank you. Bob, I share your concern with fiscal responsibility. I run two businesses, and I run them really tight. I can't afford to make any mistakes. But where were you on the fiscal responsibility when this whole thing started? Where pumps were let go, negligent, no maintenance at all? That was where you should have been paying attention, not now. Now we have a problem that somebody has to solve. You guys have people that work for you. It's not Larry's fault, it's not Steve's fault, but there's somebody that's employed by the city that dropped the ball, or we wouldn't be here. So I share your fiscal responsibility, but there comes a time when you have to pay for your sins, basically, or say, pay for your broken bicycles, and I think that's right now. Another thing I'd like to address with Larry talking about the delivery system. Like I told Matt, there's three components. You have the well, you have the pump, and you have the delivery system. And you can get A+ on the pump and the well, and if the delivery system hasn't been cleaned in 6 years, there's your problem. And when Ancon came and cleaned, they stick a 2-inch pipe, 2-inch hose through a 10-inch pipe, get to the pipe, to the end of the box, pull it back and call it done. And it's a 10-inch pipe, and that's done. The bids that I put into your packet, that I've interviewed both of them, they do it professionally, like it's probably never been cleaned before down here, with a 5-inch diamond bit that routes out everything, probably a couple of my dead cats, a lot of roots, a lot of dirt, whatever's in there will come out. So it's not the way that the company you paid $2,890 for 6 hours of labor works. These guys are professional. So if there's any qualms about that, but all three systems have to work. The delivery system has to be just as good as the well or the pump. And what I was going to suggest, if we are in such a quandary tonight and we seem to be all tied up in one, maybe we should have a study session and just sit down and air our grievances one time again, if you think that would be.
I feel like we just had a study session on this. I don't know what more, short of you bringing your own people in and verifying that the people we've had have done an inadequate job, and have those people come in, take a look at it, do what you feel and believe should be done. But I have to go back to the same thing. Who is going to pay for it? We've got an ordinance, and we've got the cost, Michael.
The cost is
and that.
$300,000. It's not 1.2 million.
Okay, and so.
And I can verify that.
I didn't say I've been talking 250 to 500,000. Who's going to pay for it? We have an ordinance that says that in 1986, so again, who's going to pay for it?
Well, I don't think a city runs on return on investment, I don't think. But I think if you invest, say, $300,000, which is what I put in your packet, and you get, say, 20 to 40 users again, the little bit of information that I managed to get out of the city was that we were paying our own way, and if you double or triple the amount of users and increase the hourly cost.
Do you believe you're going to get 20 to 40 users? I seriously, Michael.
Oh, yeah, I do.
I mean, you really do?
You had 23 people that came up with $1,000. The other 17, I live in an old neighborhood. They're like Steve and I, you know, we're just counting our
All right,
days.
hey, pardon me, this isn't a debate session, okay? So make your point, and then we'll move
Oh,
on.
come on, Craig.
No, not with you, Michael.
No, that's fine. No, that's
You
fine.
lose every time.
But I'm just.
I'll lose
yeah.
every time.
I'll never debate you, Craig. I just want to represent a lot of people that have a lot of money invested in there, and we raised 6 kids there. It's a lot of memories for us. Nancy has a place picked out where she's going to be buried there. That's, you know. That's
Don't tell us that, please.
Oh,
It's
I thought.
probably against some ordinance or code.
Well, we got a bunch of dogs and cats back there, I'll tell you. All right, thanks for your time.
Thank you, Michael.
You bet.
Joanne, you had a comment you wanted to make?
Yeah, and this was probably 6 months ago, but the lady that's like.
Hey, Joanne, come up here, so, because we record it for the public.
I've been told out loud. The lady that's in charge of the Historic Society, or was, or whatever, you know, like, into the historical district, it kind of sounded to me like she just kind of like said, screw it, and gave up. Is
No,
that
she was
pretty much what
termed
you
out.
got Donna too?
She actually was termed out.
Well, whatever.
Marge
So,
Jantz, that's who we're talking about, right?
You know, so I'm thinking that probably nobody's gonna be writing any hate letters to anybody if, you know, they've given up and that. But before they gave up, I had to put on a new roof that was expensive because of the historic district. Because the house qualified. Even though it's supposed to be in
So where
it was
are we
supposed to have been
going?
built in 1928 or something. And how do I know that? As Elma Hoover told me. But the city can only find when they redid it, you know, when they added on to it, and that was in 1945, so I guess it only counts till 1945 or something.
I know.
Because they can't find the original. I imagine it was one of like a farmhouse or something that was out on the farm. 'Cause that
Thank
was
you.
one.
Thank you. Lisa?
I can make a comment. You know, and I know everyone, you know, is very passionate about this issue, and, you know, I mean, these are your homes, and there's so many memories here, and you're so, you know, we're so torn, and I think we, you know, when we go back, like Mary keeps bringing up, the ordinance, and I know, Michael, you're saying that we need to invest, but you're kind of ignoring the ordinance that's there that tells us that, you know, the homeowner should take on some of this cost. And I think the city has done their due diligence. I do believe that we've been working over the last couple of years, but I'm disappointed, though. I really am, and in us and that community, because we have asked for input. We, you know, I know Steve has gotten the word out for, you know, to have these focus groups, and it's disappointing that, and I keep going back to Mrs. Burke, that she has not gotten any correspondence except recently. And so here we can assume that you're going to get 20, 30, 40 users, but no one, you know, we're not getting any input from people. So wait, Michael, wait. And so my concern is,
Michael.
Does this population, kind of what Mr. Councilmember Huddleston said, does this group want this, you know, that type of yard? Because a lot of people are going away from, you know, the what, because of where we live, you know, water usage and greenery. So, you know, there's a lot of people, you guys probably remember when we went through the historical district, we had a problem with some of the new neighbors that were moving in that didn't even know. They bought it in a historical district. So they had no idea when they went to make some repairs or change or whatever, they found out they were in the historical district. So how many of these homes, you know, are new people that, you know, had no idea there was even an irrigation district and really don't care, you know, they want to move on. So I'm just disappointed that we've taken 2 years and we haven't gotten the input from people. I would have liked to see that we've done all these studies and we have the map of all the homes, the people that are on it, the people that aren't on it, you know, that we haven't gotten feedback from them. And so I understand Councilmember Powell's point, let's wait, even though we've waited, we've been doing this for 2 years. But if we wait, are we gonna be in the same position in 6 months? Of really getting to the same, I mean, we knew what the cost was, we knew what was going on. So that's where I'm nervous about putting it off and making that decision. I mean, why haven't we done that already?
Yeah.
I think we, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that we've kind of talked about this really ad nauseum for the last 2 years, and we've really not solved anything. And Mr. Powell said something about adding more customers. I have in my notes here, new well, number of customers, need more customers, CFD, and bonding. Those are the points I have in my notes.
Good.
And so I don't know that we have looked at bonding possibilities. I mean, you have 44 houses in the district. How much money can you really raise from property tax? And would the residents want to form a CFD? Steve, that's what you're talking about, is a district. It could be a CFD, it could be a water district, you could call it whatever you want.
It's going to be
Irrigation
a special
district.
district of sort.
Special district, okay.
Right.
But it's similar to a CFD. They would have bonding ability, correct? So, I mean, how much could you possibly raise?
Mr. Mayor, I don't know. I mean, a couple of questions that I was going to ask, if that's the direction that the council is giving to staff, is to understand if you're wanting us to take the footprint of the homes that are within the service area of the irrigation system, or if you're wanting us to look at the boundaries of the historical district as we look to potentially create that type of a.
Yeah, I don't have an answer to that
And the only reason I ask that, Mr. Mayor, is that it's my understanding, and I'll ask Steve to correct me if I'm wrong, that there are areas that are within our historic district area that is currently designated by the council that do not have service lines that were once served by the system. Isn't that fair, Steve? Yeah.
I have the map here, from the last presentation in 8
Yeah.
and 19, and it says 63 potential users.
That's right.
And so,
That's
I don't
correct.
think anyone's brought that up tonight, but 63 was this
Potential.
old number,
Well,
potential.
and if you did it, you could reinstall lines for irrigation for all those properties. If you set up an irrigation district and then you bond it out over 20 years. I don't know, the question that I have is how much money could you raise? And money, because money's cheap right now.
Mr. Mayor, I could not answer that this evening. I mean, I would have to do some level of analysis, have somebody do some level of analysis on it.
It could be done, though.
It would really depend on what type of a special district was formed. If the group, and again, there's a process to form these districts, which are going to require some level of acceptance on the part of the property owners. As an example, a CFD, let me use that as an example because it's been brought up a couple of times this evening. You would form the boundary, there would be a physical vote that would take place with every one of those property owners. They would agree or disagree to come into the district. Once they came into the district, there would be a process to ultimately create to create a financing mechanism, and then thereafter bonds could be let to ultimately purchase the infrastructure. But there's typically some level or some form of a process that gives each property owner an opportunity to agree or disagree with coming into the district. And then there's a threshold as to whether or not the district is formed. And I know that both Mr. Jackson and Mr. Miller and I have had discussions about the probability of that. But again, if that's the direction, we will certainly look into that.
Mayor,
Matt?
that would be, hopefully with the fiscal responsibility part, would be a great thing, personally. And also, the board doesn't have to be this board, right? They could have it like a school board or a fire board, or.
That is correct.
So they
It's
could
like-
have their own.
Like
That is correct.
ED2 or MSIDD.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah,
correct.
like skater, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Bob?
I heard Mr. Raines ask if that's the direction. For me, no, I don't think that's
a viable direction to follow. I think the odds of developing a district in an existing neighborhood and getting the amount of votes that would be required to develop that, I think is a pipe dream. I don't think there's any way that'll happen. And if it can happen, I think it should be a grassroots effort. I don't think it should be our council trying to make this happen. I think the folks that need it should float that boat and see if it's promising at all.
Well,
Do we want to take a vote?
you can call for the question.
I will call for the question.
There hasn't been any motion
Oh.
on the floor,
Call
so
for a
you don't
motion.
have anything to really vote on. What I would remind council tonight is that the only item that we've agendized is the ordinance, which was drafted based on staff's recommendation to cease Evergreen District. If you're looking at doing something different, what you're going to want to do is table that item or just not move that item. And then staff's going to take the direction that we've heard, and move forward in that. Also, to the extent you still have legal questions that you want to talk about with the district, either right now or after, during our normal executive session, you'll have that opportunity as well. But remember, the only item that's been agendized tonight is the current ordinance. So we can't take a vote on whether to drill a new well, whether to form a district, whether to not form a district, because we haven't agendized any of those items. So all we can really do tonight is either take action on the ordinance or not take action on the ordinance. So but you need to make a motion if you want to call a question.
Mayor, I'll make that motion, that we should consider ordinance number 3232.
We'd have to read the ordinance number first.
Oh, I'll call for ordinance number then, please, Gloria.
Ordinance number 3232, an ordinance of the council, the city of Casa Grande, Arizona, requiring the cessation of the irrigation services by the city within the Evergreen District, authorizing the city manager to take actions necessary to cease such services, authorizing a partial refund of the assessment authorized by City Ordinance 645.16.1, authorizing the city manager and the finance director to take the actions necessary to refund the assessment.
Mayor McFarland, I would move for the passage of ordinance number 3232 with the following comment. I think we've been through this time after time after time. I think we've exhausted the possibilities, and I don't think there's any shame in the city saying we cannot afford to be in the flood irrigation business any longer.
I'll second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Gloria, can I get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Huddleston.
Yes.
Councilmember McBride.
Yes.
Councilmember Herman.
I'm going to say no, because we've had some new ideas tonight, and I think we've got even more to look at, so we can exhaust it, because I don't want people to feel that they haven't been heard.
Yes.
But I do want to say the expediency. I mean, I don't want to kick this 2 more years, and I don't think you guys do either, so, no.
Councilmember Cortson.
Yes.
Councilmember Powell.
No, and I think it's rather selfish of other members in this council to not give it a chance. All we're talking about is increasing it. Now, Bob, you and I never agree on anything anyway, so I think you're wrong, and I think you're selfish in what you're doing by not letting this go ahead and have a chance to be done.
Mr. Powell, I respect your opinion, but you don't get to chastise me for my vote.
No, I get to. I did just now.
No, he just voted no.
No, I voted no.
Okay, keep going, Gloria.
Mayor Pro Tem Fitzgibbons.
You know what, I'm gonna vote no, and just because I'm with you, Matt, as far as, I mean, I think I thought going into that, we've been through everything, but I do think that we need to try to contact some more of those homeowners to see what, the ability is for them to get on. So I'm gonna vote no, but I don't want to drag this out 2 years.
Yeah.
It needs to be quick. So no for me.
Mayor
Thank you, Lisa.
McFarland.
Thank you, Lisa. Before I vote, I do want to say a couple things. One is even if I vote yes tonight and it passes and we end the irrigation program, doesn't mean that it ends the possibility that the Evergreen District could have irrigation. But it really has to be on the homeowners. And the homeowners need to work to the points that we had mentioned earlier, whether it's a CFD or an irrigation district. And I would say that the city could help establish that, but the homeowners have to get behind it. Because if you can't get a vote, then there is no district. There is no irrigation district. And I think that's the critical question that needs to be posed to the residents, because I think it's unfair to put that burden on the rest of the community, the rest of our citizens. And so because of that, I'm going to vote yes.
Sorry to hear that, Mayor.
So,
Sorry to hear that.
all right, the next item on our agenda is reports. So I'll start with you, Mr. Powell, and reports.
Well, this has been quite an evening, and I feel guilty about not giving these people a chance to move forward.
Mr. Powell, I certainly appreciate, and you're going to have the opportunity in the second reading, but we cannot discuss in reports items that will be before this council again for a second reading.
Do what now?
I said, we can't discuss in reports items that will be considered by this council. So while I appreciate the
Well,
sentiment,
my
you'll
report
have
is
the
I'm not
second
able to comment on the irrigation.
Order, please.
No, I'm done.
Okay, Mary?
I don't have anything to report right now. Thank you.
Okay, Matt?
On a lighter note, I wanted to thank staff again for helping set up the youth commission meeting. And we got socially distanced meeting with technology working mostly very well. And the kids, the young people, were very excited to have interaction, be it over the phone or in the room with others. It was really neat to see. And they didn't touch, they were all apart, and I want to assure everyone of that, and it was great. And they are planning on having a shredding day because it was kind of a non-contact anyway, how we had it set up. So we're just going to make sure that it's socially distanced and non-contact. And we're working with First American Credit Union on that as we speak. So something to look forward to. It was very hard for us to plan any sort of activities because we don't know how it's going to happen. So.
Do you have a date?
No, we're still waiting. That's what we're waiting on right now.
Text me, please.
Oh, well, yeah, it'll be very well publicized, and I just want to give special thanks to Colin up there in the crow's nest, who runs the AV stuff for us, but it's not his fault it's not working tonight, we know that. But he was a youth commission member, and he helped set up on Saturday and came to the meeting and helped us out a lot, and he's still doing it, so.
Right.
And now he works part-time, working for the city, doing that stuff, and going to CAC, learning his skills, so, thanks, Colin.
Donna?
Just a couple positives. Congratulations to Community Services and Brian Kramer for the award that they received on the Carr McNatt Park. CB did a great job on that video, and that was really good for our community. And then I also just wanted to publicly thank Barbara and Stanley Davis. We received an email from them regarding 504B shift for their help with a medical emergency. And I think it was really nice that they took the time to get all the people's names that were working that shift and to thank them publicly to us. And sometimes they don't hear that enough, so I just wanted to thank them for doing that. That's it.
No report, Mayor. I'll be attending the CAG meeting this Wednesday evening, and I'll report back of anything that affects the city.
All right, we'll have fun at that.
Thank you.
Lisa?
I just wanted to kind of update everyone on, I know last council meeting, we talked a lot about what was going on with the the homeless, the CG Helps, and all the churches and what's going on. So the Homeless Coalition had a meeting on September 10th, and I'll tell you, there was so much to report in that meeting, as far as the different people. We had people, the police department was there, HOHP, the churches, the library, city, the county. So there are so many things that are going on right now to help those that are in need. The Resource Center saw I think about 140 people during the month. They're open on Monday and Wednesday afternoons. So if you guys know of anyone, they are, providing different laundry love things, meals, hygiene items, and setting up, they have caseworkers for CARA to help with utility and rental assistance. So, pardon me?
Post boxes too for mail?
Yes, yep, they have the mail for the homeless. So, there's, as all of these people are saying, there's a huge demand right now. There's a lot of people that are suffering, a lot of people that are homeless, even though they, might be living with someone in their home, they might not be in the park, but a lot of people are struggling. So, of course, I'm excited to see that we have allocated some of our funds, the CARES money to these agencies, and they're definitely using them. The police department is doing a lot. They have a police foundation, and they've used pretty much all of their funds. They don't have anything. So if anyone wants to donate to a great organization that's helping, the homeless population, the police foundation is doing that, with their police officers, and Wendy Edwards is the one coordinating that. So, but there's just so much. The churches are doing a lot. What is the name of the Community Bridges? Not Community Bridges. What's the organization? I've lost my thought. CBI, yeah, Community Bridges. It just amazes me what these guys do. I mean, they're going out in the field and talking to homeless and providing services and trying to get them caseworker, showers, counseling, and they're saying that there is definitely a rise in people with mental health, opioid, alcohol addiction, and they're seeing a lot of older people. It's happening too, as well as the very younger people. So there's just a lot going on, and of course, the church. I'm really losing my train of thought. The Lighthouse. Thank you, Mayor. The Lighthouse is doing so much, with their food distribution, and they're still continuing to work on providing the showers and laundry services at their facility. So they're kind of, who knows? We're hoping in the next few months. So there's a lot going on with that organization, and a lot of things going on to help the homeless. So, and lastly, the census, we're in our last week. So next week, September 30th, so I'm really begging people to get on and take the census. The Pinal County numbers are kind of low, 56.8%, Castrofran's at 61.8%, the United States is at 65.8%, and Arizona's at 62%. So, our number's okay, but we still have, room. So please tell everyone I have one more week for the census.
It's a lot of money, isn't it?
It's a lot of money.
Matt?
The Rotary's doing their food distribution this Saturday again at Eva's, so I just wanted to.
What is?
The Rotary Club at Eva's.
Oh, okay.
At 9 a.m. on Saturday.
That's with some money we helped them with, right, with the city?
Absolutely.
We spent over $1 million.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. And I got a couple things here. I want to remind everybody that the Lynn Colas Center is open Thursday, Friday, and Saturday for free COVID-19 testing. Pinal County is paying for that. If you do have insurance, they will ask for your insurance to try and supplement some of that cost. But it shouldn't cost you nothing. There's no copay or anything on it.
How long is it taking for the tests?
2 days.
Okay.
Yeah, so the turnaround has been very quick.
Good.
They had 61 total the first 3 days, so not a lot, but it's more than we had before, and hopefully it's some people who haven't been able to afford it. So, and then also just a little recap on the COVID-19 numbers, just to give everybody an idea. 85122 is doing very well. We've had 15 new cases in the last week, so that's one of the lowest weeks we've had in a long time. Pinal County has sitting at about 188 for the last 7 days. And their infection rate is up at about 7%, their positivity rate. I believe ours would be around 4 to 5, so, in the city of Casa Grande. So those are good numbers. Just want to encourage everybody to continue wearing your mask, continue up. I know I keep getting emails that we need to stop the mask, stop the mask, stop the mask, but it is the new norm for a while, until such time as it either goes away or we have a vaccine. And even at that, one of the doctors in the CDC had a quote that I think we're going to probably try and use, and it goes something to the effect that even if you get a vaccine, then it's only about 70% effective. If you wear a mask, it's 100% effective. So you use the combination, you're going to be in pretty good shape. So I think it's something we need to consider, something we need to look at. I'm not suggesting that we wear it all the time, but certainly this is leaning towards some of the new norm. So we'll see what happens. Just need to stay smart, Casa Grande. And again, the 2030 general plan update is available online for download. Please tell all your friends, take a look at the general plan, give us your input. You have until November 1st. Some bad news we got the other day that the RTA is going to be heard by the Arizona Supreme Court. So oral arguments are in December, we think. So can's been kicked down the road a little longer. In the CARES Act program, just to kind of give everybody an update, we're around 190 plus thousand. I know Donna and Lisa are on that committee. Thank you both for serving on that. I think you approved 6 more today. Does that sound right? Six more new applications.
Close.
And one of the things, well, we'll talk about it later. Just realized I can't talk about it. Electric light tour packets are available online. I think Steve and his team have a really good program for that, and hopefully we'll hear a little more about it, a little more detail on it. Steve, if you get some time, you can maybe share that with us. I've looked at it a little bit. It looks like fun. It looks like you could actually enter your house if you wanted to, and it would be a location where people could go and kind of grade you, and people's choice. All the prizes that we had will still be up there. It's just you're gonna have to go see them. They're not gonna be coming down Florence. So it could be like a Christmas tree lane, where you get out and you drive around, take the family. Could be fun. Could be fun. Let's see. I already talked about that. Oh, I did want to give a shout out to the RC Flyers. They actually were recognized on a Tucson station, but also recognized by the national organization. And literally, I guess it's kind of like the trifecta or the triple crown of radio cars. I think if you saw the paper, it was in the paper as well. But they won the Award of Excellence out of 24,000 clubs in the United States. They won the Award of Excellence, they won the Gold Level Leader, and they also won AMA's Club of the Month. So all at the same time. So great job to one of their founders, Alan. He lives this stuff, and I tell you what, if you ever want a PR guy, you should hire him, because he gets more press time than anybody I know. Let's see. That's probably enough.
Come on.
Gotta have one more thing.
No, I'll end on that. So just thank you to everybody, and I am going to be out of town for the next couple of weeks. So if you need some signatures, Lisa is your gal.
Right.
All right.
So-
I'm ready.
Give her the gavel.
Yeah. So I guess we're going to go into executive session.
Right, and Mayor, before we have a motion to move into executive session, I just want to remind, we had put 2 items on, but since you've already taken action on the Evergreen irrigation system, there'll only be 1 item on
Right.
for executive session tonight.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to go into exec.
So move.
Second?
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Any opposed? Okay, we are in executive session.